Ryan, how are your punchkis? Saw you in the paper.
They are fantastic.
Kind of bummed I didn't get one today.
I got mine. That's why I went yesterday.
Smart man.
They had.
What flavor did you get?
I'll tell you can't go wrong with either chocolate cream or peanut butter cream. They're both fantastic.
Oh boy.
Hey, Nick. Hey, just heading into a meeting here.
I've never had a bad one.
Yeah.
Right now, or?
Can't go wrong anything peanut butter in my book.
Yeah, we just.
Now it's time to quit everything and eat everything that tastes bad, but it's good for you.
All right, I'll call you on the way home.
That's how it goes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Cynthia, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you, Vince?
Doing good. Jody, hello.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
Hello.
Got a couple of guests early on. And
Well, welcome to Monroe.
Thank you. I love Monroe.
yeah.
Hi, Michelle. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
See you tomorrow.
Yes.
So has it been a year since you've been down here in Monroe?
Yes.
Isn't that crazy?
It's
Wow.
been a year since I've been anywhere. I have 3 trustee meetings tomorrow, all by
You
Zoom.
really?
It makes
I
it
didn't see
easier. I
much on
guess.
our agenda other than we got the work session to start with, but so once we get rolling, Jody, I think once when we get to your presentation, Michelle, you're just going to make her a co-host.
I can do that right now.
Okay.
Cynthia, are you going to be showing anything or just speaking?
I am not showing anything. I do not know how to do that. I gave everything to the city attorney, so I hope that, I'm assuming he distributed it. Hi,
Yeah, what
Mr.
I
Mayor.
distributed was the memo you sent to the pension board. So just, as I said, just a couple of minutes. They don't get a chance to chat with you very often. And
Sure.
first time in 4.5 years with me here over the council meeting. So I figured, just so if they wonder what this is about, then they'll at least have some advanced understanding. But you got to wonder, where do they come up with the legislative title? Setting every community up for Retirement Enhancement Act. I mean, I guess the acronym is part of it, but
Dark corner booth in a bar.
So I just, Michelle Germani, I just moved her into, there she is. Kelly's the only one I don't see. And we are live on YouTube and recording also. Mayor, have you heard?
Pardon me?
Have you heard anything from Kelly?
No, I have not.
Okay.
And Michelle, thank you for sending out those additional notifications and email meetings and times and process. I appreciate that.
No, you're welcome.
Internal and external.
Wait, I did Andrew wrong. Hold on a second. Let's see. All right. There's Councilperson Felder coming.
How's it going?
Good. Michelle, I don't see any message or notes either from the councilwoman.
All right, nor do I, so.
He's under as an attendee right now.
Oh, I see her. Thank you, Mark.
She just popped on. Mhm.
There you go.
Well, it is 6 o'clock. Clerk, could you give me when you're ready, then we'll get started for the work session.
I believe I'm ready as well, Your Honor.
All right, very good. At this time, we'll call the city's city council work session meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Oh, I said I was ready and wait, I am. I have a
Okay.
lot of white pieces of paper on my desk and
And as you get that prepared, reminder that we have where we're all our jurisdiction we're at currently for the record.
all right, I'm ready, Your Honor. I can call the roll.
Wonderful.
Council, and just a reminder, your location. Councilperson Iko Angeli,
Present, Monroe, Michigan.
Vining,
Here, Monroe, Michigan.
Germaini,
Here, Monroe, Michigan.
Lamore,
Here, Monroe, Michigan.
Felder,
Here, Monroe, Michigan.
Whitman,
Here, Monroe, Michigan.
Mayor Clark,
President, City of Monroe, Michigan.
and Clerk Treasurer, I'm here, City of Monroe.
Very good. So we have a few items on the work session. We'll start, Mr. Pastu. I think there's a presentation to start, and also welcome Cynthia.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just, I know that with yourself and Councilmember Iko Angeli on the pension board, and last month, the attorney representing the pension board, Cynthia Billings Dunn, discussed some legislation that would require an amendment to our city ordinance. And since I'm not sure we've had Cynthia here to review anything with City Council, but just thought I'll give her a couple minutes to go through it. And if you have any questions, she'll be able to answer them. Cynthia?
Thank you, Vince. And I apologize. As soon as the meeting started, my two little dogs just went crazy. This happens every time. Hopefully I can get through this without them barking in the background. So essentially, section 12750 and 51 of our retirement system ordinance sets forth the required minimum distributions that's required in the Internal Revenue Code. So basically, the IRS requires that members must start taking a distribution from their pension plan no later than April 1st of the year following the year they attain age 70 and a half. And the reason for that is because they don't want the retirement system to become a perpetual tax haven. If people are taking their pensions out of the pension, the IRS isn't getting their income tax on that money. So the Secure Act was passed on December 20th of 2019. And basically all that did was push that age out from 70 and a half to 72. So individuals must start taking a distribution from their pension no later than April 1st of the year following the year they attain age 72. So we've drafted an amendment essentially incorporating the requirement of the Secure Act. And that's going to require adoption by council. Actually, even though it has to be implemented now, it doesn't have to be adopted until December 31st of 2024. The IRS does recognize that sometimes it takes municipalities a while longer, to go through the legislative process in adopting these amendments. But rather than putting it off until the last minute, I wanted to get it in front of you. So with that, does anyone have any questions? It's actually pretty straightforward, and it is a required amendment.
I see Councilman Felder. Andrew, you have a question?
Yes, sir, I do. I'm getting reports that people are unable to access the link to the meeting.
Oh,
They should
Okay.
go to the website and click on the link. I just sent Jody a new link, so they should be able to get on. I don't know what the issue was.
Okay,
But others are in the attendee room using the link, so.
I see that. and
Yeah,
that-
so just have them
just
go
keep
back to
it
the
off on
website and have them try using that link again.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Thank you, Andrew.
Your Honor.
John, go ahead.
Yeah, my only comment to Cynthia is local government works much more faster than Congress does.
I understand.
Thank you.
So the intent would be to have the first reading at our March 1st meeting, and then obviously move it to the public hearing and consideration for action at the March 15th meeting. So, but again, I just wanted to put that out there so there's no surprises, even though it seems pretty routine, and it is, but just an opportunity to talk a little bit about it before it comes before council.
Sounds good.
Very good.
The more we can keep away from IRS, the better we all are.
Well, it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure seeing everyone tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Cynthia.
Yeah, thanks, Cynthia.
you.
Thanks
Take
for checking in with us. It really helps. And of course, being on this meeting as well, whether it be employees or other people, they also hear direct and learn as well. So thank you very much.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Have a good evening.
Have a wonderful night. Mr. Pastu.
Thank you, Your Honor. The next item is a presentation regarding our enterprise fleet management program. A few months ago, Councilmember Felder had inquired about an update on how it was progressing, and right now is a pretty good time. We're actually just finishing up our annual planning for fleet purchases and sales this year. And then we've had a couple of years of experience now, but also we're looking to add the police department to be fully participant in the program itself. Up till now, it's just been fuel and some maintenance, but now we'll look to actually do purchases and sales as well. So with that, let me introduce Jody Seal, who's our representative with Enterprise, to give kind of a review of how we've done the last couple of years, and then just do an analysis of what we anticipate with the inclusion of the police department fleet. Jody? And I think Jody, you have a PowerPoint, right?
Yes, I do.
Welcome, Jody, and please start.
Thank you. I will share my screen. Here we go. So as Vince had mentioned, my name is Jody Seal, and I manage the account for the city of Monroe. The program originally started in December of 2018, so I actually have some overview for us since that period of time. So for those that aren't familiar or maybe haven't seen the original presentation, this just shows some of the areas of services that we offer the city. So those that are in green are the ones that you guys are currently utilizing, and those that are in red are opportunities if you guys ever wanted to look into them. So tonight, what my point is I'm going to go over the replacement plan of what was originally presented versus what actually has happened, the overview so far for 2020 versus 2019, talk about the replacement recommendations, and then also the analysis on adding the police units. So this is actually what was presented in 2018. So it actually listed out the vehicles that you guys currently have in fleet, as well as on the right-hand side, the plan from 2018 to 2019, the units that you guys were recommended to replace versus what actually happened versus what the plan was. So I kind of wanted to give an overview that so far we have been right on track for all of the vehicles that were recommended and that have actually been replaced. So the target originally was, let's look at anything that is over 6 years old or that has more than 60,000 miles. Okay. So how does that look like in a numbers perspective? So it actually looks very, very good for the city. So this shows the current period that you can see on the left-hand side is going to be 2020. Those that are in the prior period is going to be 2019. So that is January through December to give you a full year perspective. The lease expense is actually a negative because we have sold a good amount of your vehicles that you can actually see as bullet point number 3. So there is actually resale gains from 2019 that were 140,716 on 27 units that we sold. And then in 2020, we sold 8 units that were obviously a little bit younger in age. So we actually were able to get almost 100,000 for those units. So the money that was actually paid in for the lease payments, we actually provided more money back to the city based on the gains from the resale. Total spend for 2020 was about $68,000, and that was still with the acquisition of 11 vehicles, and that does include your fuel into that account as well. So overall, if you look at how was the lease expense from 2019 versus 2020, in both the last 2 years, the lease expense was negative 51,000, as well as negative 58,000. So the program is working so far. Any questions? I know that was a lot.
I don't see any hands at this time.
Perfect. So how we do the recommendations, this is one of the things that I present to the city, is I kind of look through and say, hey, here are the vehicles that, one, we put into the original analysis, and then two, what are in that 6-year or 60,000 mile bucket, because we're still in the process of making the fleet a little bit newer in age and mileage. Okay, so here are the recommendations that we have for this year. At the bottom, I actually included the police units as well on here that we would recommend replacing, which we'll talk about the analysis on the next slide. One of the things that I also like to do is say, from a standpoint of selling this vehicle currently at this mileage base, what are we estimating to get back in equity? And that's where the dollar amounts on the right-hand side come down, and then I highlighted at the bottom to kind of give us an idea of what is the city going to get back with the replacements that we're going to put in into the fleet. Questions?
Andrew, you have a question?
I do. You caught me before I could raise my hand. So when we're experiencing unusually high returns on this program as we sell off our existing fleet in terms of the owned vehicles. But when everything's set, that's not going to continue forever. Eventually, we're going to have 100% lease. So when everything settles and we're no longer selling vehicles, what's our annual lease expenses, and what's our annual cost to the motor pool now under the current program?
So you are correct. Eventually, it's not always going to be a gain going back. And that's actually one of the things in the next slide, which I have for the police vehicles, that will kind of show you the overage. I don't have up in this presentation the original estimated value that we were going to save you towards the end over the 10-year analysis, because usually we kind of look at everything in a 10-year. One of the biggest benefits of being a government customer is your buy on the vehicles, that you guys get such a low buy on these vehicles that when we can actually sell them at the low mileage, the return is actually very, very good, which still will help minimize your costs. So that your question actually might be answered a little bit better when I show you the police analysis to kind of show you how that looks over a long term.
I'll sit and wait patiently.
Okay. Any other questions on this?
I see no motions or hands. Please continue.
Okay, so I'll move on to the police section. So one of the biggest questions, kind of what you had just mentioned, is what does it look like between what you used to do in the past, which was just to buy vehicles outright? Okay, so in this example, this is what we were actually looking at this year for the police vehicles. They said that they wanted 4 Interceptors, and then they wanted 1 smaller SUV non-marked vehicle. So I actually took what it would be for a 2021 Interceptor, because the pricing for 2022 is not out yet, and the Chevy Equinox. So on the bottom, you can actually see a cash purchase. So this is saying 4 of the Interceptors with aftermarket, and then 1 Chevy Equinox. If you actually were to buy these outright, it would cost the city this year just over $209,000. Okay, so what does that look like from a leasing perspective? Okay, so same concept, we actually just make it into smaller lease portions. So now we have the lease costs for the 12 months for each of these vehicles. We also have to assume that all 4 of these Interceptors are going to need the aftermarket. So we know it's around $9,000. So we still have to take that into consideration, because that's a cost as well. So you take your $49,000, which is just your lease payments. Now we take your $36,000, which is the aftermarket cost. And in year 1, it's $85,000. Okay. So let's compare. So year 1, there's obviously huge savings. To your point that you said, Andrew, yes, there is definitely savings in year 1 for cash flow. So it will save the city in year 1 about $124,000. Okay. But what does that look like long term? The biggest thing that we do as a company is help you sell your vehicles. Enterprise Holdings has 2 million vehicles in fleet. We sell over 1.1 million vehicles a year. So we have a very good resale footprint. So when we sell your vehicles for you, we anticipate what we're going to get at the end of the gain of 4 years. Okay. So at the end of leasing a vehicle for 4 years, and then what you will get back at the return, it's estimated $59,000 for that vehicle. It's still going to be less the remaining. So $173,000 is going to be the net cash outlay over the entire term. So you're still taking your original comparison of 109 that you're putting out in year 1. Now you get to play with that cash flow over the next 3 years. And there's still going to be a savings because we're going to help you sell that vehicle when the vehicle actually needs to be sold, and for a good a value too. So does that kind of help answer kind of like long-term big picture?
Councilman Felder?
Yeah, that's more of an idea. Yeah.
Okay, great. I see a couple other nods, yes. So thanks, Jody.
Yep. And so that is the end of the presentation. I wanted to kind of keep it short and sweet, kind of a good overview. Is there any other questions that you guys have in regards to the program or how it's working for the city?
I'll see if there's any hands.
I have a question.
Okay, I got two. Brian and then John.
Thank you, Your Honor. Real quick, Jody, just, are we comparing apples to apples as far as the vehicles go?
Yes. So the vehicles for the police, they actually sent over the unit specifically that they acquired last year. So I actually use those exact vehicles.
Perfect. Thank you.
John, please.
Yeah, question for Ed. From your perspective, how's this going financially?
I've been happy with it. I mean, I think the numbers that you see there are accurate and adequate. You know, when we do sell vehicles, most of the time I go back and compare what we sold them for what we originally purchased them for, and it's sometimes amazing how close we get to the actual original purchase price, honestly, on some of the vehicles, especially some of like the F-250 trucks and the Chevy Colorado. So overall, I've been very happy with it. I think it's working out fine.
And we think with the police cars, because they tend to have lower mileage but high engine use because they're constantly running. You still, Jody, you still think that your target numbers are going to be, you're going to be able to hit them?
Yes, absolutely. So we've gotten better over the last couple of years at becoming very close to the resale value on these vehicles, because it really wasn't an area that was tapped into until probably about 5 years ago. There's actually many other cities that are in the same boat as you guys are in that actually do their police vehicles. And I actually have 3 in my book of business that I manage currently.
Okay, thank you. Yep. Thanks, Your Honor.
Mr. Pastu, you got your hand up?
You know, the one thing with it too is having gone through our third planning meeting now is that you do get a good sense of where the resale values are, which vehicles are performing best. And so I think, and on the back end of it, there's a very good maintenance record, if you will, for each vehicle, which helps in the fact that there's a good program with it, a good record of it. And I think it helps with the resale value on the back end. And I will tell you, we talked a little bit about the unmarked vehicles with, Chief McCormick. And again, we know which vehicles have probably, if you will, the best turnover value. And we look at maybe doing something that you would find not just your traditional sedan, but something else that may very well be suited for that use. And again, in a much better financial consideration to do that. So all in all, we've been happy with it. I know Patrick and Bill Walters with DPS have been very happy with the program. And so,
Okay. Other questions from council members? Seeing none, I'll say thank you, Jody, for the presentation information. It's always helpful. It's good to see the figures, numbers, and how it compares to current. And yeah, so I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Everyone have a wonderful evening.
You too. Have a wonderful
Jody.
evening. Mr. Pastu?
Next item is, just wanted to talk a little bit with Council Loretta Lapointe and I regarding where we are with some of the parks and programs for the upcoming season. Talk a little bit about special events as it pertains to the COVID-19 pandemic. We've talked a little bit about looking at each of the programs and some of the manner in which we operated last year, and certainly considering some changes. The one thing that's very, not gonna say promising, but a good trend at the moment is, we're seeing a decline in the number of cases and certainly hospitalization rates. That's encouraging. Also immunizations taking place on the rise, and again, a favorable trend. And so I think in a general sense, what we're looking at doing for most of the programs is to kind of wait and see for another month where we're at. Now, for some programs in the summer, it's going to condense the registration period of time that we have. But, again, talking with Loretta, I think that would be doable, whether it involves youth baseball, softball, some of those types of programs. But we do think it would be beneficial to wait, till mid-March or so to evaluate a little bit further with those. We've also looked at some programs out there, like garden plots. We can do those. There's very little issues with social distancing. They're easy registration, those type of things. Going through some of the indoor programs, the daddy-daughter dance, the mom bowling, son bowling, we've looked at. And then some question, we were talking a little bit about whether to consider the adult sand volleyball, maybe have that, maybe not as a organized league, but more of a, drop-in type of activity. And then when we go through looking at some others, like we got some dog programs that we may hold off for this year, storybook time in the park, track and field historical program that we have, which is pretty much run by the Monroe County Museum, that we would probably discontinue our involvement with that. And then again, we listed, programs such as concerts, court dances, line dances, free exercise in the park, as programs that we'll just kind of wait and see how things evolve before we start pursuing anything with it. And then again, obviously the most identifiable programs, the spring, summer, and fall soccer, adult softball, youth baseball, fall ball, and probably fall winter adult volleyball. We may end up look at discontinuing that since it operates at Jefferson schools anyway. So, but in just kind of giving a general oversight of some of the discussions that we had, and I'm rattling them off verbally as opposed to putting them in writing because they're still kind of in discussion, but we just kind of would like to look another month down the road and see where things are at. So thoughts or comments? I'll let Loretta talk since I've been doing all the talk. And then at the end, I want to talk a little bit about special events.
All right, let's Loretta, see if you have any some additional thoughts or comments, and then we'll see what the council may have, or we can go to them next. Your choice.
I think Vince said it very well. Does anyone have any questions?
Sure. I'll see if there's any comments or questions from council. Well, Brian and John, the same thing, both at the same time. John, we go, and then Brian.
Loretta, we want to make sure people get out this summer. People just have this need to get outside. Is there any thought about having a concert in the park, but having the parks maintenance guys kind of stripe with chalk the 6x6 areas where people can put their chairs and congregate and still maintain social distancing?
I think partly that would depend on what the governor is saying, how many people can congregate in an outdoor area without a way to determine how many people can get in the park. It's not like one main drive-in where you could stop the cars or the walkers. So I think we could, we'd have to take all that into consideration. How do we can we keep them in that 6 area if they decide they want to start congregating? How would we? I think it would be good to think that out very thoroughly before we did.
Any idea or thought about using St. Mary's parking lot as a drive-in theater where we put up a expandable outdoor screen and show some kids movies so parents can get their kids outside and stay in the car and have popcorn and kind of do what we used to do when we were kids at the drive-in?
We can take a look.
When we were
Yeah.
young.
Take a look.
I mean, just something a little bit more different, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, we did talk a little bit about the concerts and again, trying to figure out some of the separation was part of the conversation Loretta and I had last week. And again, as this thing progresses, we may feel a little bit better. But at the same time, we need to, if we're going to do that, it may end up a little bit later in the summer. And there's always the issue of securing the entertainment. But, we could talk a little bit more about what's possible with that.
Brian.
Thank you, Your Honor. Loretta, as you know, I'm an official, a referee, and I had the privilege of refereeing a basketball game last week. And all the kids on the court had to wear a mask. We had to wear a mask refereeing. It was very difficult, but we drove through, made it through it, and it worked very well. And all the people in attendance also had to wear masks. And this is all indoors. And the MHSA guidelines are very, very clear on this and how it can be fatal if not followed. In other words, fatal to the sport itself. So I think there's ways we can do this. We just have to kind of maybe adhere to something like that, or at least follow some of their guidelines and see if those things, because those are some of the things that the governor is approving. Otherwise, they wouldn't be playing basketball right now. But it's working. I can tell you that, and the numbers are still dropping. So it really is something we need to do with our youth, is to get them outside and getting them moving again, however we do it. And this is probably one of the most practical ways I can think of doing that, is to follow some of those guidelines that they're initiating that are approved by the governor. And maybe when the spring sports come up here for the MHSA, they may introduce some other guidelines or something else that may be pertinent to what we could do with our summer leagues and fall league.
That's correct. I think right now they're indoor and they're not the sports that we play in the summer. So as the governor, as they put those out, and there will be a translation to outside, we have far less people. I noticed, I've read several articles about some of the basketball games and some of the challenges they had about people weren't sure who was supposed to be having people put their mask on, or, and some of the masks weren't on. So I think that's part of what Vince was mentioning, that we would reassess monthly to see, how much PPE do we require then? Do we wipe the bat after each batter? Who provides that? Who do we hire someone that can maybe go around and that's their job, is to employ those? Those are all things that I'm sure that Vince and I would talk about monthly.
Mm-hmm.
We have quite a while to accept registration. So we don't have to start registration now. We usually start early, but we don't have to.
I guess a follow up. It kind of goes to both John and Brian there. First, John, what's the option even of Mutson Park, which has a broader space available when you talk about that drive-in option? Just something to think about that. I think St. Mary's is the core of the center in the city, but if we're going to drive in, they could drive there too. That's a thought. And Brian's, I think I understand as the athletics goes through with the schools, but they also have a structure in place that is through the school system of managing and putting the structure in place for students that are attending school, but also in the athletic program. Ours is a little more open in some sense. I think, Loretta, you probably hit on it right at the end, is how do we manage that? And is it somebody that has to be brought in to do so? And how do we want to make sure it's, as everybody wants it, to be safe? One item I know that is very active within the community, and of course the tot lots, but yet they congregate together as youth, and it's great programs. I could see some challenges there. And it's not just the youth, it's, would be people would be comfortable with their the tots going out to with others at a park. And then you got the volunteers, because it is volunteer coordinated. Maybe we may not have the same staff and likelihood. So I'm sure you're assessing that as well, because I think there's some challenges there. Great programs, well appreciated by the community, but things that we need to think about before we just continue as we have.
If I may, Your Honor.
Yeah, Vince, if you would.
I purposely left out the discussion with Tot-Lot.
Oh, sorry.
Loretta and I have talked about that in great detail for all those same reasons. And we see a very, very challenging way to maintain, the distancing that we need to, and the safety that goes with that program. And so, again, we're still assessing it, but I will tell you right now, we probably are leaning pretty strongly that we maybe not be able to put the program on this year.
Yeah,
for all those reasons.
And I bring it up because I know it's well liked, but I think there's also, I agree with you, there's the challenges, and then it's not just the tots, it's the families, and then of course, then the volunteers that manage that. So I appreciate the continued thoughts on that. Brian, you have another follow-up.
Yeah, just to follow up, the sports I'm thinking of, it would probably be more like soccer for our rec leagues. Massa, the way they run their soccer, of course, they run them on our fields. And it kind of correlates with basketball, even though basketball is indoors, being outdoors with the close competition and the people being so close together. That's kind of where I was kind of hinting on is to that sport for Monroe, not necessarily softball and baseball, because I think that can be socially distanced properly and a little bit easier than it can with soccer, where you have the people so close together.
Okay.
I think Mesa runs their program independently of ours, so I'm not sure where they're at in their timeline, but they would handle that. They would handle that apart from us. And Mayor, just so you're aware, we don't have volunteers in the Tot-Lot program. They're all paid staff.
They're paid staff, yeah. Community members that are brought in for that.
We just hire employees.
Hire employees for that, yeah. I guess I shouldn't have said volunteers. I should have said they are paid, but it's people coming in from the community, and they may have, I don't know if you have the same volume that would participate in through the COVID times or not. So I should have said paid, not volunteer. Thank you. Andrew.
Elsewhere in the country, as people are signing up for activities, what I'm seeing in some other places is doing checks for vaccines for participants. Now, obviously, that's not really going to be that's going to be pretty immaterial for the Tot-Lot, seeing as how most of the people who work that program are younger. It's a lot of college students, as a summer job sort of thing. So, I mean, they're way far down on the list with me. We're not going to get vaccinated probably until the fall, but President Biden put out a plan where it's 100 million vaccinations in his first 100 days, and it looks like they're going to easily pass that. So by about March, April, May, half the U.S. population theoretically could be vaccinated. At what point do we just say, okay, we're willing to do this, but to participate, you need to verify that you've gotten your vaccine? Have we thought about that at all, or because that would sort of solve the issue.
But we could give it some contemplated. The enforcement end of it, it will be the challenge and the resistance to that challenge if that was in fact the case. But yeah, Loretta and I had talked. Go ahead, Loretta. I'm sorry, I keep interrupting.
I think one of the fundamental differences to remember, and I have to remember this every time I read through everything, we are all outdoor smaller programs, and most everything I read with NRPA or MRPA are people that are running, a rec center. So when people are coming in, they can get the, the temperatures, and they've got the staff on and it's all set. That would be far more challenging with ours. For instance, Tot-Lot, the nature of Tot-Lot is we all use the same crayon. We sit within a foot of each other at a table. So those are a little different that we'll have to look at. We can't spread them out over a whole gymnasium. So we've got maybe a little different set of challenges because our programs are all outdoors.
I think
many
for
are
Tot-Lot,
drop-in.
you're spot on that one. Given the ages of the populations that you're dealing with, it's probably just not feasible. but at registrations for things like softball or soccer, like Councilman Lamore puts it, to be able to register, I mean, I imagine that there's some paperwork that you have to submit to be a participant in this, and just including, yup, these are my number one, number two shots, got them, good, okay, you're good to go. It seems like that would be a fair enough barrier and keep everyone safe at the same time.
Probably some internal discussions there. Right? And Matt Budd just kind of went out, our city attorney, but all those reviews I think are important, just as you've said, Andrew. And
Your
how-
Honor.
It might have, I don't know if it has not, but there's something off the cuff.
Okay. Brian, you had your hand up, then John.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think I refer to Mr. Buds on that as far as the constitutionality of being able or having to basically put forth your vaccination record. I'm not sure if that would be something that would be violating a HIPAA or something constitutionally on the participants' rights.
Yeah, I think that's why the city manager and our recreations director, Loretta, are having those conversations and really getting down to each of them individually and what might work and what may not. So this is good discussion though. John.
Your Honor, my understanding of the vaccine is that even though you're totally vaccinated, it doesn't mean that you can't be a carrier. You may not get infected, but you could also be a carrier. So just having the vaccine may not prevent you from spreading it. And my other understanding is that from people that have had the vaccine, is that they're given a card and they're told to keep the card with them for a period of time so they can show if it's required for entering a program or whatever that they have been vaccinated. So I think my understanding is that if there is a program, the city could require that people show their proof of vaccination if that's a requirement to participate in the program. But I'm kind of thinking from a park and recreation point of view, we should downplay or at least discount organized sports for this summer and encourage people to do more personal recreation, but just to get them outside.
Yeah, John, I think your point's well taken. I see Matt's got his hand up as well as Vince has comment, but we looked at last year and saw the increase in the public, and SEMCOG put out some really interesting data, how everything spiked and went way up as far as people getting outdoor and exercising in a less structured or organized fashion, but he actually increased overall through the different ages in that. Mr. Buds, and then I'll get back to Mr. Pastu.
Your Honor, I guess the only thing I would say is I would be happy to take a look at that and work with the city manager as we need to. But I guess I would say to some of the points that have been made, I don't think anyone here is talking about mandatory vaccinations for any kind of, I'll say, essential services. So you get into a question of, voluntary recreation type activities that I think we're going to see across the country, whether it be for certain kinds of travel, for certain types of activities, either, I'll say enhanced PPE or proof of vaccination being something that we're all going to have to wrestle with.
Right. Mr. Pastu?
Kind of as a follow-up to, conversation with Loretta, but also with the comment about organized sports. I didn't send a copy of it to council, but Loretta sent me this very interesting article about, we know the trend is less away from organized sports, but how many people this last year where you saw a phenomenal spike in people camping, back fishing again, outdoor activities. You're talking industries that saw 40 to 60% growth in their sales as a result of this. And I think the question in the article was, is this kind of one of these, changing moments where recreation activities do change? And I think, how do we, and again, it goes back to our special meeting discussion about that as well, but it was a very interesting article that how pronounced that changed and how dramatic it was just in the course of 1 year with how people engaged from a recreational standpoint. So if I can I carry on here a little bit more?
Sure, absolutely.
Away from programs. The one thing I will let you know, and again, it's kind of in that similar vein. Last year, we didn't have the restrooms open or drinking fountains. Loretta and I are talking about how we can at least maybe do a single cleaning every day and notice and provide notice that it's going to be done once a day and that's it. If someone wants to use it, it's almost do so at your own risk. I mean, we did get a lot of calls in that regard. And what goes along with it is that we also didn't hire any part-time seasonal staff last summer. And we would get back to doing that again. Drinking fountains a little different. Again, I think that's going to be one of those we'll assess a little bit more as we go along with that. But also, having the courts and some of the fields open for informal play, encouraging that, but maybe not getting necessarily whether it's sand volleyball or some of these programs, allow the drop-in aspect to take more and more of a route, if you will, for that use. So, Retta, anything you want to add with that as well?
Oh, sounds good.
Okay. Michelle Germaini.
I think, am I muted? No. Yep. I think with the resources that we have and the government guidelines, we as a city can put our heads together and come up with something fun and inventive to get some of these kids outdoors as a family, just something different so that they can share, like John said, in a vehicle, do the drive-in, just to get them outdoors and get them active again, because there's so many kids that are cooped up and getting depressed. It'd be great if we could do something to get them outdoors. Mm-hmm. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, John?
Another thought, I don't want to burden the administration too much, but any thought about things like having bicycle rentals for kids that don't have access to bikes? I think having the open courts, the basketball, the tennis available for kids to go out and play some basketball with one of their friends or play a game of tennis or volleyball, I think we're at a point where I think we could probably do that appropriately. And then the other question I have, Loretta, is how many restrooms do we have?
Well, there's 2 restrooms, meaning 2 doors, and then there's several stalls at Munson. There are 2 at Veterans Park, literally, and 2 at St. Mary's Park. Then there's 1 at Hellenberg, which isn't really, I wouldn't count it as a main restroom.
Okay, I mean, is there any reason if we had part-time staff, we couldn't clean them at least twice a day, sanitize them?
Twice would be what we really kind of normally do in the summer. I think that the main point that Vince and I were talking about is this isn't something, again, like an indoor where I can have a staff person once an hour cleaning every restroom, just because we don't have that many staff either. So if we have one person and they go around and kind of clean the trash and clean the restrooms, that's what we've been doing the last couple of years, is twice a day. I just think it would be good to state, right on the sign that we have a daily cleaning so that people are aware you need to wash your hands. We can't guarantee the soap dispensers won't be ripped down. We just want to be realistic of really what will happen if we open the restroom. You may need to have your own hand sanitizer. We can't guarantee there'll be hand sanitizer, or we put them back up as quickly, but people do rip sometimes the soap dispensers out.
Well, I travel a lot for business, and I stop at the state rest stops, which I have to say they do a great job of cleaning them.
Fantastic. And
I talked to one of the guys that was cleaning, and he said they bumped it up a little bit more than what they usually do, but they go through and clean it and sanitize it. And they do have the portable, in the lobbies, they have the portable sanitizers, like we have at City Hall in the stairways. And, people are respectful of that, and they don't damage them, they use them. But I think people are getting more accustomed to it.
I guess I'll follow up to that. John, I think, as we were talking about, we do have some paid support staff that comes for various programs. And if those don't come forward to fruition with us as a council because of we're just not quite there yet, maybe while budgeted, and we talked about that during our budget discussions, those funds could be directed toward, rather than hiring a person for that, hiring the other person, whoever that may be, that could supplement some of that cleaning through a cleaning company. So if we make sure we think about being flexible with the funds that we provide and appropriate to the recreation department, and how we make sure they're able to manage that, so it's not the staff that gets kind of overrun with some things too. If we're budgeted, just reallocate it to a different purpose. Same purpose, recreational benefits, but in a different fashion. Yeah, good point. All right.
One last item, Your Honor, related to the topic tonight is special events. Just a couple of items. Again, we put them on hold, although I did get a inquiry regarding the Memorial Day Parade. Again, I hadn't responded. I didn't, I think, maybe again, it's kind of a wait and see where we're at with that. I know the organizers probably at least need a couple of months, probably as much as possible. But I think, let's wait until late March to make a decision regarding that. But I did have a conversation with the organizers of the Labor Day Parade, which is obviously in early September. And I was, I basically said, well, I don't know what's going to happen, but, why don't you go ahead and plan for it? And hopefully by that time, we'll be in a position where we can actually have a special event again in the community. And I also know that when you, put your deposit down for entertainment, that there's also a period of time where you can cancel it and get your deposit back. And so, again, that's just kind of an example of playing it by ear. But I wasn't ready for us to review and commit to the Memorial Day Parade just yet. But I did feel I needed to bring that to your attention with that. Again, most of it is distancing. A lot less concerned about the viewers on the sidewalk as I am. The assembly itself is where there's a concentration of people. And that's really a big challenge at the staging areas, to keep people somewhat separated, but it can be doable. But at the same time, I just wanted to let you know that, those are out there at this point in time.
Thank you. Any follow-up? Brian?
Yeah, just real quick for Vince. So does that mean we're not going to consider the Memorial Day Parade, or we're just waiting to get a little more time under our belt first?
It's a wait and see.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any final comments on our third item on the work session? Seeing none from, or no hands. Vince, you have one more item at least on the agenda.
Yep, we'll talk a little bit about some possible agenda changes. Loretta, thank you.
Thanks, Loretta.
Thanks, Loretta.
Michelle, were you going to pull those up?
Oh, I didn't know you were going to have me do that. Sure. Let me, it'll take me a second. I thought maybe you were going to do that. Let's see.
Oh, no.
No. Okay, wait a minute. Mark, I'm going to make you the host because it's telling me that I don't have permission to share. So maybe there's a issue happening. So let me see if I make you the host. Yes. And then, okay, that got rid of it on my screen. Now make me a co-host.
Oops.
If you don't mind. Sometimes you just have to work with Zoom where it's at. And right tonight is not being very cooperative.
Okay, I think I did it.
All right, now let me see. Okay, that seems, okay, that should be better. All right, so share. Thank you, Mark. Yep, that seemed to help. All right. Oh, where is it? Okay. Can everyone see the work session special meeting agenda?
I'm
We
saying,
see three samples on there.
Need to open them up, one at a
It's
time.
open on my screen. That's why I'm asking.
Oh, okay.
All right, let's see. 1 second.
yeah,
Yes.
You see that? No, right?
Yes.
You can?
yeah.
Okay, then I'm gonna stop there. Go ahead, Vince.
So if you could just scroll it down just a little bit.
That might mess it up. I don't know. Hold on. All right, there you go.
So we use this, this was, Mayor Clark, Michelle and I had some discussion and about what we can do to try and make the flow of our meetings a little better. This first one deals with special meetings / work sessions. And as you know, what happens if we have a closed session, particularly if it's when we have a regular meeting, we literally have 3 different meetings, and we're trying to get it consolidated so that we could just have, the special meeting / work session. The special meeting on a night like tonight would deal with a situation where we would go into a closed session. And we're tinkering with how we can structure this so that it's still treated as a special meeting to comply with the Michigan Open Meetings Act. And you will notice that there is public comment, which needs to be there with any posted meeting, but also allow for a closed session so that we don't have to come in and out and have 3 different meetings. The significance of it is, and we talked about the closed session, and I know council, we've had this in the past, is that there is times where we would like to have coming out of a closed session that we add an item to the regular meeting agenda so that the action that's to take place coming out of the closed session is public. There's been times in the past where at the end of a regular meeting, we go into closed session, and this is when we were still meeting in the chambers. We come out, nobody's there. By that time, Impact may have closed down as well, and we take an action that is not, as public as I think we would like, or as transparent as we would like. And so, we think that this would be a means by which we would still be able to have work sessions, but if we call them special meetings, that we can get around not having, to have 2 meetings if we go into closed session. So, and then the other part is we would draft up some policy as to how this would work and function so that it's pretty well laid out. But in a general sense, this was our thought dealing with those closed sessions, particularly before a regular meeting.
So before we get to the regular meeting ones, we'll have to take comments on this one. Andrew, go ahead.
I certainly like the aspect that tries to make them more public, any action that we're going to take more visible. However, my concern is that we're borrowing from Peter to give to Paul. A lot of times we pack our work sessions pretty much to the brim, as full as we can get them. And in many cases, we're having to bump items off and move it to next week or whatever, just to have the time, because the 7:30 start is a hard cutoff. If we're borrowing time from the work sessions to do special meetings, that concerns me in terms of the items that we're pushing in our agenda in other places.
Your Honor, may I take that one?
Sure.
So one way to think of it, because I had to do this myself, is we oftentimes schedule a special meeting on a Monday night to start at 6 o'clock, and then we schedule a work session, and then we schedule the regular meeting. So it's not really changing anything. It's in terms of what we're committing to for the night. That's a different conversation, perhaps. It's really more of how we're noticing it and what the agenda will look like. So what you're talking about, it would still happen even with 3 agendas and 3 postings. This would just condense it down to 2 agendas and 2 postings. So like I said, that the point you bring up, which is a valid point, may be a different discussion.
Is it, I guess, is it possible that we could not only have the special meetings before the meeting starting at 6, for election meetings, obviously they take 5-10 minutes, sort of a separate meeting, but in this format, it would be with the posting of the work session. Is it still possible, though, that we could have the meetings after the regular meeting if need be and still have the condensed format?
That is, if I may, Your Honor.
Yes, Mr. Pastor.
Absolutely. I was just making a note. For example, there are times where we will have a discussion regarding collective bargaining issues, knowing full well that we're not going to come out and take any action. It's an update and feedback that administration needs from City Council. So those I think would be good candidates for the back end of the regular meeting. There's land acquisition related items to address with council that may not require any action, but more of an update as to where the status of that is. And then the other would be if the quarterly legal updates that City Attorney Buds provides. Those are examples, well, based on what the work session is. If we think it's jammed that night from an administrative standpoint, we'll just schedule those on the back end of the regular meeting as we have done in the past.
Understood. Wonderful. Thank you.
So I had resisted these when Vince first came here and first started talking about him, because he did bring this up years ago to me, and he persisted, and maybe I'm a little bit more open-minded, but I had to get to the point where I understood how it wasn't reducing transparency, and it's not reducing transparency. In fact, if anything, to me, it makes it clearer what we're doing on those nights where we might have a special meeting to go into closed session and then we come out in a work session. I think everything is spelled out. The other thing that I like about this is it codifies, for lack of a better word, the public comment section in the work session, so to speak, and in these joint sessions. So I like it. It took me a while to get there, but I think it's the right time for the kind of work we've been doing in work sessions and special meetings.
Thank you. Other questions or comments for the city manager on this as far as the special meeting work session? And then we'll go to our regular meeting agenda.
All right, I'm going to work on pulling that up, Your Honor. Well,
Okay. I don't see any other inquiries at this time.
let's see. Okay, I think, can you see the screen?
We have the screen with the 3 samples in a small form.
All right, hold on, let's see. Now, can you see it?
Yes, we do.
Okay. There.
Yeah, that works.
So this format, if I may, Your Honor, Michelle, would restructure essentially the regular meeting agenda. Now, in looking at this, it what you got are pretty good bones of an agenda. But what it does would move the consent item up to the top so that you take action at that point in time, as opposed to the back end of the meeting. I'll be honest with you, I'm used to the consent items being on the front end, and that it does provide an opportunity to move that down for the regular meeting or for city council agendas. And below that, you'll see the next item is regular approval of the regular agenda, which would have included any item that was brought down from consent. And so the other part is that after following that would be presentations, communications, public hearings, of which we have public hearings and communication items tonight. And then I think a natural flow after that would be council actions, and then the remaining being city council action and our city council comments and citizen comments as well. You will notice that the citizen comment or public comment is not on the top end of the agenda as it is. We've got two sections. What this does, and again, again, I think in a positive transparency approach, is that the city council allows citizens to discuss or ask if there's an item on the agenda that they wish to address. And so at that point in time, that can happen, or it's noted that when it comes to that item on the agenda that they'll be referred to for discussion. The other part of it is that, again, you don't see it in many communities where you actually allow someone other than a council member to move an item from consent for discussion. So those are, I still think, we obviously are meeting the Open Meetings Act requirement, but we just think that this may move along the process a little bit more, a little more expeditiously. Not that we have a big problem, but there is a little more order to it from there. And then the other one that Michelle, can you pull the other one up too? Because they're very similar, except for just one little small change.
Let me try.
John, you want to wait to see the second one, or?
Yeah, we'll wait for the second one.
Yeah. Clerk Treasurer LaVoy pulls that up. One of the items in the previous agendas, everybody recalls, was public comment not related to an agenda item. In fact, it just that opportunity, and it is within the council agenda. It might have been more sense to make related to an agenda item, but we do that already, and I state that publicly. After there may be a council person who wants to pull an item, we give the public the opportunity to do that as well. So it really covers that first opportunity related to agendas.
So can you see that screen?
No, it's the same one currently.
All right, 1 second. Now?
Yes.
Yes.
This is really pretty much the same one, except it just, puts it into a comment section that, again, follows a very similar format with council, mayor, clerk treasurer, manager, and citizen comments as well. But essentially the previous one that you have just kind of handling the comments as kind of a single subtopic, if you will.
I guess we'll start with some comments here, as we're in about 7:05 currently, or 7:03. John, go ahead.
Thanks, Your Honor. I took a look at this agenda, the one that's up currently, and my comments are that it's kind of awkward because we have a consent agenda and then we have a approval of a regular agenda. And we should just have one agenda. And after invocation and pledge of allegiance, we should have the approval of the agenda in case the council needs to pull something off consent, or they need to pull something off of council action, which we've done before. So my suggestion is we have approval of the agenda, and then under that would be the consent agenda, presentations and public hearings, and city council action. So they're subcomponents under one agenda. Okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Vince. You got a comment?
Yeah, if you would just remove approval of agenda after the invocation, and then if someone made a motion to move an item from consent to city council action, it would be contained in that motion. Or if there's an add-on item that would go somewhere else in the agenda, or a deletion for that matter.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the other, I guess this is more of a concern I have, and we don't see it, well, we have during COVID, but I remember when we were in the council chambers, before we had citizens comment not related to an agenda item, we used to have people that came that, and one that comes to mind all the time is Jeannie Micka. Jeannie and Dick would come to a meeting and they'd sit there throughout the entire meeting. So Jeannie would get up at the end just to give us an update of an event that was going to happen at the Sawyer House. And it's like, really, we want to make people wait through an entire meeting just to get up and maybe say thanks to council, or I want to let council know that my street light is out. That was the whole purpose of putting the citizen comment not related up front. So if people just wanted to make a comment to us, they didn't have to stay through the entire meeting to do it. So I still think that that has some purpose. And it's more towards the convenience of the residents than sitting through an entire council meeting, and they're almost the last one that gets to comment if they don't have something that's on the agenda.
Okay, Andrew.
I had very much the same thought as John. If I'm a resident coming to a meeting and just want to make a brief comment, not an item for discussion, but just say, hey, thanks for everyone for coming out to this thing. Jeannie and Dick making an update. This happens frequently and are not really a huge time suck out of the meetings. In having to sit through a 2-hour meeting, I think is sort of a burden to a lot of people that just want to make a brief comment. So I guess, would that citizen comments under agenda item number 8 be the first opportunity that a citizen would have to say their piece? Or would there be an opportunity prior to that?
I think the opportunity as these present, and we currently do, is if there was related to an agenda item, they have the opportunity to request it be pulled from the agenda, just as the council does. The other comments not related, it would be or just a comment anybody wishes to make regarding what they want to speak to council to would come in both of these proposals, or I guess not proposals, but examples would be at the end of the meeting as we progress through the agenda.
An alternative is if you did keep it at the front end of the meeting before after the approval of the agenda, is when you get to comments, just drop the citizen comment end of it. That would be their opportunity to speak. Or if they wanted to speak to an item on the agenda, they can speak.
So that's what you're saying, is rather than having it at the close of the meeting, have it at the beginning of the meeting.
Just the citizen's comment.
I don't have a problem with that. I just think that I can remember, like, when we had a couple of gentlemen from the VFW come and ask council if we'd put up an extra flag at the memorial. Why would we want those folks to sit through maybe a 2-hour meeting just to get up and ask us something that takes 2 minutes?
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Other thoughts or comments?
So could
Michelle, and then I'll go.
I didn't quite follow the conversation, the first comment that John made about the consent agenda, and then which is regular business that is in theory should be just easy to approve, and then the where is it, approval of regular agenda. Could we just go over that briefly one more time so that I understand it better?
I can explain. I think that we need to have one agenda that includes several components: the consent agenda, presentations, communications, and public hearing, and council action. And under council action, we usually have sometimes as many items under council action as we do on the consent agenda. But that would give the council, after invocation or after citizen comments, where there's the approval of the agenda, if we had to make motions to remove something from consent or delete something or take something from consent and moving under council action, it gives us that opportunity to adjust between the categories.
I think what I hear you saying, John, is that when we approve the regular agenda, if there are items that a council wishes to have pulled or moved, it's done before, and then it's done right then, whether it's impacting the consent agenda or otherwise. And then as it goes forward, then it's already taken care of, as opposed to after the consent agenda has been presented.
Yeah, I just thought if we had an agenda and then under the agenda were 3 main topics, it gives us a little bit more flexibility to move, modify, or delete, or sometimes we've added things to the agenda at the administrative request. So we have like 3 subgroups under the agenda. That would be like we'd have the agenda and maybe 1A is the consent, 1B is presentations, communications, public hearing, and 1C is council action. And they're all under one umbrella.
And the action to move things comes at the motion to approve the agenda. And if not, then there's a motion to adjust.
Because we don't really pull consent agenda items like we used to, where we get to the consent agenda, pull the items and then talk about them later. Now we're tending to pull them and put them under council action is
Correct.
where I think you're going with it, right?
Correct.
Okay, and I'm still stuck, I think, a little bit in the old way that the consent agenda is supposed to be just something you pretty much just are able to approve, or you pull the item and talk about it. So I see where you're going with it.
All right, if you'd hold a second, I see Mr. Buds raise his hand. Might be some clarification. I'll get to you, Brian, then. Matt?
Your Honor, the only thing I was going to say is I think if I understood Councilman Angeli correctly, I mean, from my perspective, perhaps it's just changing the order of 4 and 5 to say approval of the agenda should come first. The only thing I want to say is that typically we wouldn't give a citizen the right to weigh in on the agenda. So there still may need to be the ask on the consent agenda side if that becomes item 5 or however they end up being renumbered. But I would agree. I think the idea of overall approval of the agenda by the council at the outset above the consent agenda would be a good point, I would say.
Yeah, I think that's where when I get to the consent agenda, I'd have to make that in ask as we move forward. Brian.
Thank you, Your Honor. That's what I understood as well. Same as Mr. Buds, switching 5 and 4 and taking and what you're proposing was taking citizens' comments out where it's at currently and basically putting that within the consent agenda part where they have the opportunity to talk to whether or not they want to take something out of the agenda, put it in the agenda, or talk about something totally different. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, I think there's a little bit difference there, if I may, Brian, through the mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
So, part of it, I mentioned if we do some restructuring here, what would come along with it are, some policies for the items. So let's just say you have approval of the agenda. The mayor would inquire to city council, is there any amendments that you wish to make to the agenda, such as pulling an item from consent for discussion, and similarly offer the same of the citizen opportunity. Now, clearly, any additions or deletions are going to be coming through the council to approve. But I think, put together something in there that would say that when the mayor gets to that point of the meeting, he would ask if there was any for an approval or any changes to the agenda before it's adopted, inclusive of council and the public.
So am I correct in saying that you want to keep citizens' comments in 2 spots, or were you going to switch that and make it 1 spot?
I'm thinking it would be in 1 spot for general comments. But again, as I said before, Monroe does a very good job of letting the citizens engage in discussion for items that they're taking action on, which is not necessarily the norm.
So if I can summarize, we would have call to order, roll call, invocation and pledge of allegiance, citizen comments, approval of the agenda, and then we would have the consent agenda, presentations, and council action.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so I think that's I think Mr. Pastu can kind of, from our conversation, come up with another I'll say draft of what this is and get it to council, make sure it's meeting everybody's thoughts in the conversation, as well as how we might transition in the future, and see if that is agreeable. So
sounds good.
So I think that's the items listed. It's about 1:15. Mr. Pastu, any, I guess, comments for the next 5 minutes or so you may want to add before we take a break for the regular meeting?
If I may, Your Honor, just kind of an update, since I didn't send out any correspondence over the long weekend, but just a reminder, we've got fire station bids coming in for the demolition next week, and that'll be on the the March 1st meeting, as well as the construction paving bids for this upcoming season will be on the March 1st agenda. One of the things Mark confirmed with me, but I think we're going to have is a presentation with MCOP regarding Opportunity Center and Labor Park. Mark and I had met with Stephanie and Manny, talking a little bit about their engagement with Labor Park. If you remember, we have a agreement with them, but we kind of alluded, well, once the Labor Park is opening, we're going to ask you to do some more. And so they've put together a proposal that we'll talk about on the March 1st work session. The other is we got a handful of requests for city to sell property. Mark and I are comfortable with a couple, and a couple we're not for the time being. We'll talk a little bit about that at our March 1st work session as well. We received just last week our proposals for the Orchard area sub-area plans. We received 4 from land use planning consultants and are looking to try and schedule a meeting maybe early next week to review them and decide who we may follow up for an interview. And then we received 5 proposals from firms regarding the space analysis for the and programming for the Opportunity Center and the VAR Library as well. And that team is meeting later this week to review those. And then lastly, a couple of items. We've been working with some security and handicap accessibility issues with City Hall, primarily on the first floor. I'd like to try and be able to present that to City Council. We've been working with Kohler Architects on that. And so wouldn't mind if time permits to do that at the March 1st meeting as well. So just a quick update that I otherwise didn't get a chance to, I didn't put in probably had a chance, but I didn't in a written form.
Okay, thank you, Vince. I'll just, as we always do, any final thoughts from council members before we relate it to the upcoming agenda for next meeting?
Your Honor.
Yes, John.
Vince, how'd the snow removal go? Looked okay in my neighborhood. I'm assuming okay throughout the city?
Yeah, I think generally, the timing actually of the snow event probably couldn't have come at a better time. There's times where there's bad times, and this one Patrick and I were talking about. But if you don't mind, I'll ask Patrick when we get to the city manager comments to give council an update during the regular meeting.
Okay, great.
I know he was out taking a look at it late this afternoon, so.
Brian?
Thank you, Your Honor. I can give you an update on downtown if you'd like. Nothing was done in the parking bays downtown. So there was nowhere to park down there. There were opportunities to park in parking lots. Parking lots were plowed very well. Just the parking bays in the immediate downtown area were not. So there really isn't any place for anybody to park in front of a business. So that still is something we have to talk about, I think.
I think overall, I thought as I saw what was cleaned and clearly when the sun came out, I saw how many sidewalks in some of the areas actually got clear. But I also noticed that, when we send out an emergency, which requires people to remove vehicles from there so they can be cleaned completely, unfortunately, we have some that are not moving their vehicles. So I think that's a topic to discuss as well. Brian?
Yeah, just to reiterate, there was nobody in these parking bays. So, I mean, they were clearly able to be cleared out. It just didn't happen. So me being a business owner downtown, I'm just letting you know what was going on downtown.
And I think that's probably part of what we'll hear with the review. I think it's always good to update. It usually comes when there's a significant snow. I'll say the process and procedure of what gets cleared and how we get through those. But we'll look forward to Mr. Lewis's comments here at the next meeting. And nothing further, I see. So we have about 10 minutes, 11 minutes. Mindful of your, hang on here and starting about 11 minutes. Mindful of your audio and your video. If you wish to keep it on, that's fine. But otherwise, just beware. Thank you.
The
And at
YouTube
the,
recording
yeah.
will still be happening. The YouTube broadcasting, I mean.
That's right. So this time we'll close the work session. Thank you all. Thanks for the comments. And we'll see you here in a few minutes. Thanks. Councilwoman Whitman, just so you know, your microphone is still on. Just that's what you want it to be, but just letting you know. Thanks. See you in a few.
They're plowing my road.
Welcome, Karen.
Thank you.
Congratulations on a great year.
Thank you. It was sure exciting.
Tough to make it through it, but you guys really persevered. What a great job.
Yeah, they had a lot of sacrifices that they made just with all of our pauses and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just glad we were able to finish.
No, great job. Great coaching.
Good evening, Karen. This is Eric Clark. I see Ava is on as well. Is she going to speak? Is that one of your, that's one of the students, correct?
I'm just going to be the one.
Okay. All right. Because I was Clerk Treasurer Lavoy and I just we're checking the list of names and make sure that we get people promoted to the as a panelist like yourself. And if you're the only one, that's fine too. I always like to hear the students, but I understand this works out well as also. So as we go through the agenda, Karen, we go through the first parts, and under communications should be first up. So just looking for your comments for the public, as well as what a great year. And then we'll go from there. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I see we have I think everybody's here. We'll first a couple video connections. I think we'll be good. Well, I have 7:31, so I'll wait. Clerk, if you're ready, just let me know and we'll proceed.
I'm ready.
Very good. It is 7:31. At this time, we'll call the city council meeting to order. And the clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Ikwangeli,
Present, Monroe, Michigan.
Vining,
Here, Monroe, Michigan.
Germaine,
Here, Monroe, Michigan.
Wilmore,
Here, City of Monroe.
Felder,
Here, City of Monroe.
Whitman,
Here, City of Monroe.
Mayor Clark,
Present, City of Monroe, Michigan, and clerk.
Clerk Treasurer, City of Monroe, Michigan.
Very good. Thank you. Next item, please.
The next item is we have the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Guide our working together, give us wisdom to make the right decisions, your understanding to listen to each other, and your compassion to promote the peace and welfare of the residents of this community.
Thank you. I'd ask if you would please join as we start. I pledge allegiance to the flag.
To the flag, of the United States of America.
And to
The
The republic for which it stands,
one
one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty.
with liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item are any amendments to the agenda.
Any administration or council, any amendments to the agenda?
Nothing here, Your Honor.
I see none. Next item, please.
The next item are any citizen comments not related to an agenda item.
I'll see if at this time, and clerk, I know you look, see if there's any comments. I see one hand raised. I also see a lot of our students are joining us this evening. So if you start as you see them pop up, I see there's at least 3.
All right, I will just go in the order that I saw them.
Okay.
So I have Graham Denton.
Hi, Graham Denton, Monroe, Michigan.
Hold on, Graham. I just mindful for, as all those that might want to speak for the rules of the chamber, to make sure that you state your name, your jurisdiction of residence, and mindful of the 3 minutes. And please begin. Thank you.
Yeah, I just had 2 questions or pieces of information I wanted to share tonight. I tried to set up with a meeting with yourself and Mr. Pastu, and I've been waiting about 10 days for a response. But the meeting was just concerning the updates that I had after meeting with the local members of the advisory board, like you wanted me to. That included Dr. Kojo, the president of the community college, Andy Clark, the director of the museum systems, JJ Przwozniak, the deputy director of the museum, and Scott Bentley, the director of the National Battlefield. And through our conversations, they told me that they actually think the statue should be relocated. And so
Graham, hold on. Before we speak for what others say, I think it is appropriate that we probably get together to have the conversation. I know that just in the last couple of meetings or so that we want to hear from the public what your thoughts are. I don't think we can speak for others, but I'll look forward to having a conversation with them as well. But please continue.
So in private, these conversations happened. And so you have 3 out of the 4 local institution experts who know better than you or I about this, agreeing that the statue should be relocated. And also the last time I spoke with Mr. Pastu 2 weeks ago, the city had not hired an outside consultant to organize the final members of the advisory board. And I was wondering when we can expect that to happen. That was just what I was going to ask in the meetings, and a few other pieces of information that I don't want to share publicly that I do want to mention. The second part was just that other components of of Monroe have been gracious enough to engage in these type of conversations. There's a presentation being put on by the community college this Thursday at 5:30 p.m. You can find that event on their webpage under events. It's pretty easy to get to. And I believe, and that's symbols of racism and how to heal. Scott Bentley, myself, and Pastor Boone will be panelists on there. It should be pretty good and kind of cover the topics that we're discussing, or hopefully beginning to discuss today. The Tuesday after that, the school board has been gracious enough to grant me 30 minutes for a presentation that concerns potential changes to Custer Elementary School. And I'll go over, topics like whitewashing of textbooks, the United Daughters of the Confederacy, that might further explain why there's this confusion for these symbols and these statues that's occurring between us. And so it's sort of what I talk about too on my NPR interview as well. But yeah, I'm just really excited that other parts of the community are willing to hear this. And yeah, I look forward to your correspondence. Like I said, if you'd like to discuss this in private, we could. My email and voicemail is open.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pastu. I see you have your hand raised.
Thank you, Your Honor. Graham, you're going to get a call tomorrow from Pat Weaver. Actually, I talked with her late in the day today to arrange a meeting with yourself, Mayor Clark, and me as well. So sorry that didn't happen as I talked about with you a couple of weeks ago. The other part is one of my laments during the holiday season was I had 3 RFPs to write. I got 2 of them accomplished. This was one that I didn't. In fact, I talked about it at the end of the work session with the one for the Orchard East sub-area plan, and then the one with the space analysis. And this one, I'll be honest with you, is a little more, this is not necessarily in my wheelhouse and how to define what the scope we would be looking at for a facilitator. But yeah, it was kind of one of my goals between Christmas and New Year's to get all three of those done while nobody was around. So again, my apologies on that one.
Right. Well, Treasurer, I think I still see a couple hands. If you continue.
Yes, 1 second. All right, Mr. Williams.
Good evening, Council, Honorable Mayor. My name is Chip Williams. I am a Monroe City resident. I and my wife also own a business in downtown Monroe. We own Williams Insurance Agency at 14 West Front Street. And I wanted to introduce myself to those of you that I don't know. I am also the chairperson of the Downtown Monroe Business Network for this year, and just wanted to make sure that everybody on council knew who I was, because we would love to be part of the conversation for anything that is dealing with the main downtown business district when it comes to things like, for instance, the principal shopping district, or the possibility of locating recreational marijuana dispensaries along the historic Monroe Street corridor, or anything with parking improvements, or doing away with any parking improvements, that type of things. We would love to be part of the conversation with City Council to make sure that the downtown business voices are being heard.
Very good. Thank you, Chip. Thanks. Clerk Treasurer, I think we have another hand up.
We do.
Asia? No, we can't. It's a little
Hello?
warm. Okay, try again, please.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Okay, good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Asia Hawthorne calling from Monroe. And I would like to express a lot of the residents here in town are inquiring about socially distanced events for the summer, such as yoga and Tai Chi. And they're hoping that they can preferably be by the water. I'm not sure if the city has made a formal stance on whether the events will be canceled through a certain time period. I mean, I know last year it was through September and then it got extended to January. So I apologize, I don't know what the current stipulation will be, but there is definitely public interest in socially distanced outdoor activities. It's good for mind and body, as we know. And I'd also like to inquire about the snow plowing of secondary streets. I witnessed quite a few accidents in just my neighborhood and had to help several people push. So I'm just unfamiliar with how the road commission works in the city of Monroe. So I would like some clarification on that if possible.
Well, I'll make two comments, and then I'll first start by saying that the work session just prior to this meeting, there was an extensive amount of time that was spent regarding our parks, recreation, and our programs for the summer. So there's something you can catch on YouTube as that gets posted, but also through our recreation department and the city manager and the council and the discussions of where we're at. And some of the we're kind of wait and see, because we're still waiting to see some improvements, but some things that were discussed that are possible to move forward. On the second one, the County Road Commission does not take, I'll say, actions within the city. It's primarily through the city DPS department. And if you stay through the meeting, I know that Mr. Patrick Lewis appears he may be joining us at the end of the meeting during the manager's time regarding the streets in the city of Monroe and snow removal. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. I will be present until the end. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Clerk Treasurer?
I don't see any other hands. Do you, Your Honor?
I do not. I guess we'll move forward.
The next item on the agenda is the communications section, and item 3030 SMCC Volleyball Team Day, February 16th, 2021.
Thank you. I'll start. First, I want to welcome the Coach Karen O'Brien to our council meeting, and on behalf of the City Council, I want to congratulate SMCC Volleyball, women's volleyball team for a successful and great year. And we have a proclamation that I want to read portions of it, but also talk about it as well. And hopefully you have some comments on behalf of SMCC, yourself, and your students, athletes. I know many of them looking over to the attendee list. They are listening and they are joining us. So I want to thank them for joining, so we can recognize and honor them as well. But the City Council is very pleased and takes great pride in the fact that our St. Mary's Catholic Central High School women's volleyball team were once again a state champion. It's their 7th state championship, and it's the first back-to-back, making history not only for the school but also for the Monroe County region in this arena. But back on January 16th, 2021, the St. Mary's Catholic Central School made history, as I said, but also that they're the first region school to win back-to-back. And I started looking through the accomplishments, and I didn't look at the rest, but I think it's about the 25th district championship that SMCC ladies have had. So as I go through the proclamation, I just want to say, as whereas this Coach Karen O'Brien, assistant coaches Kerwachak and Hutt have instilled in their players the importance of teamwork, discipline, dedication, sportsmanship, and education. And I'm going to go through the names, since I don't think they want to join us, and hopefully I'll get all their names correct and save Coach O'Brien from sharing those. But they had the volleyball team had distinguished itself through academic and athletic achievements. And the members of the team are Olivia Anderson, Kylie Barron, Colleen Castiglione, Kate Collinsworth, Abigail Koslow, Andrea Cousineau, Anna Dean, Emma Daberstein, Michaela Hutt, Jenna Kapp, Ava Keyline, Grace Lipford, Jada Nowak, Ava Scanosha, Brooke Kimberling, and Grace Kimberling. As I mentioned, not only were they great athletes, as it says here, but whereas they also distinguished themselves athletically and academically. Beside the team's victories, they had a 39-2 record, just outstanding. But numerous individuals in All-State academic team honors, 5 players being placed with the All-State Division 3 first and also 3rd teams. I have a list here. There's many that I think about that in athletics. We learn much about teamwork. We learn much about playing together, as the students do. But I was very proud. I know the community is, as well, as we look at the athletic and the academic achievements that occurred. So the team slogan was "Defend Your Name, History is Made." So I'm going to stop there before I make the last comments and hear from Coach O'Brien for any comments you have. Challenging year, but share some thoughts, please.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Clark and the council members, for recognizing the accomplishments of this team. And in this past year, no one would have thought that our season would have continued through Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's. My players made a ton of sacrifices with socially distancing themselves, staying at home, and going to school online, which many people in the beginning thought that was an advantage for them, but they missed being in school. They missed seeing their friends. They missed seeing their teachers. But once we got up and going, after 2 separate pauses, we had COVID testing that we had to do. They did everything that we asked them to do. When playoffs started, in our 7 matches, we didn't drop a set, and teams only averaged 13 points against us. We were very dominant on the court, but as you also mentioned, we had a great off the court season as well. Our team grade point average was a 3.75, which qualified us for all state academically. And then 5 seniors made first team academic all state, and they all had over a 4.0 grade point average. So we really accomplished a lot in the classroom and on the court.
Congrats. Wonderful. You know, I appreciate the review. I know that many of the young ladies and student athletes are online here in our meeting in Zoom, so we want to congratulate them as well. I thought maybe one or two might want to just make a comment, but I understand why. It's a little difficult here in a Zoom meeting, as we've done in the meetings in the chambers in the past. So we have a proclamation. I'm going to read the last part of it, and this is: therefore, I, Robert E. Clark, Mayor of the City of Monroe, with full support and congratulations from the City Council, do hereby proclaim February 16th, 2021 as St. Mary Catholic Central High School Volleyball Team Day. We commend the team and the coaches, as well as the parents and the family, for their support and encouragement for these fine young athletes, and we encourage them on their outstanding achievements and congratulate them completely. So congrats from all the council. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you so much.
We're all going to give some claps here, no hands. I know it was, you know, it made me think about, as you said, some challenging things throughout the year. If you're thinking about those pauses and breaks and be able to continue in all aspects of being a student athlete and what that means. So I appreciate the review on that. It's a challenge for our youth different times, and it's something they should be very, very proud of how they achieved and maintained their safety and health for not only for themselves, but those around them. So thank you. Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And as Coach departs, I know we have the proclamation that will be signed by the council. We'll ensure that that gets delivered to SMCC so they can show it and proudly display it at their school. So thank you. Clerk Treasurer Lavoy, next item.
The next item is item 3038, still under communications, Principal Shopping District Report.
Thank you. Mr. Pastou, and then I think you might have some information on this as well. Communication is what we have.
Well, thank you, Your Honor. I'm just going to go into a short presentation with it. As you know, that this has been one of the City Council's goals in the past, and obviously we got a little bit delayed with the COVID-19 in trying to set it up, but at the last meeting, the council authorized the manager to prepare a report regarding that, addressing the necessity, the boundaries of the district, program plans with cost estimates. And so as I went through this, I addressed the necessity aspect of it in three different components, looking at the historical aspect of our needs in the downtown, short-term considerations, and then long-term. The first part with the historic consideration is, again, the unfortunate underperformance, if you will, with the DDA tax increment capture relative to other successful downtowns in the immediate area, namely Wyandotte and Tecumseh, which I included in a table there. And again, since 1990, that you know, we've had a 1.34% growth in taxable value within the district itself, which is about half of what the other two DDAs that we used. And had we experienced a similar growth, we would have seen about $200,000 annually in additional revenue that the DDA could appropriate toward different redevelopment programs, projects, and services in the downtown. Regrettably, that didn't happen. But if had that level of success, we probably wouldn't have this discussion today as a need for additional funds to address some things. Again, the table identifies, you know, how those you know, Monroe compared with the other two downtowns. Short term is, you know, directed in some ways to develop to get resources that would be needed for the downtown master plan. Again, namely to upgrade the public realm through responsible maintenance, support of public events and that promote business activity, better manage, improve parking, and improve safety and security within the district. And again, certainly the DDA's operating budget's really not adequate to handle a lot of that. And in many ways, the city's stepping up in a couple of areas, particularly in the maintenance area, to try and address some of that shortfall, if you will. And then the long-term consideration with it is, you know, what we face as a city overall with, you know, our taxable value settlement with DTE Energy. You know, we're, as you know, looking at approximately an annual operating shortfall within the next 3 years of $1 million per year. And so, you know, how do you put in structure in place that can continue to provide some of the necessities in the downtown, and without taking for granted that city's commitment of $145,000 per year can continue to come from the general fund into the DDA, because they are foregoing revenue, cities with for that purpose with the DDA. So in looking at the necessity, broke it down into historical performance, short-term considerations related to the master plan, and then lastly, long-term, whether you can continue you know, supporting that tax increment financing into the future. The next aspect of it talked a little bit about the statutory background, authorizing a principal shopping district, covers some of the board members and that composition, and some of the details regarding the limits of an assessment if established. The next part dealt with the shopping district boundary area, which would change, would be much more of a core area of the downtown, takes out some of the fingers, if you will, particularly to the south end of the district on South Monroe as well. So one of the things too is looking at description of the assessment. We were looking at just as a starter, 4 cents a square foot. We've got roughly just less than 1 million square feet that could be eligible for assessment on that basis. And it would generate roughly about $37,000 per year as a starter. And again, the thought was, let's try it for a couple of years, see how that works, and if, you know, evaluate with it. But, you know, the services to provide it are listed in there, whether it's streetscape amenities such as banners and flower pots, landscape maintenance, marketing, promotional community, special events, parking management and improvements, and security such as cameras that could be added in there. I think in talking, you know, both Annette and I were thinking, okay, you know, start small with, you know, some of the amenities, streetscape amenities, the promotional and community events that would bring people down, again, consistent with the downtown master plan. Maybe not as much focus initially on parking management, but also look at some security, and also the opportunity with cameras, and I say using cameras to also create points of interest of activity that may be going on positively in the downtown. You know, the duration, as I said, we were looking at, it was for a 2-year period. And if I go back to the statutory aspect of it, one of the things that I think, you know, is I shouldn't say that actually it's in the end of the long-term considerations, is that, you know, there's a lot of activities that a principal shopping district can do that actually generate revenue, and could support some of the programs and services within the district benefiting businesses and residents. But also it's in there, is that the PSD can be funded through grants, donations, local government units such as the city or the DDA providing specific services or program and events. And so there's a lot of things that a principal shopping district can do that generates revenues and programs and services outside of the special assessment. I know it created a lot of anxiety and social media with that. And you know, I think just a few moments ago, Mr. Williams, you know, indicated like to be part of the process. This process isn't going to happen. I think I mentioned it in a correspondence last week or in my staff report or fact sheet that the Planning Commission did not have the 4 votes necessary to amend the downtown master plan that specifically references incorporating a principal shopping district. That was something that was recently added with legislation in 2020, and had that been in place when the downtown master plan was adopted in 2018, it probably would have likely have been in there. So the fact that that happened, it was not 4 affirmative votes, it was 3-1. Needed 4 votes to have a majority approve it. It just doesn't allow enough time for this to move forward and consider it for the May tax bill. But I also think it's an opportunity to broaden the dialogue, reach out to businesses, address some of their concerns and misconceptions based on some of the things I've heard about what it can do and actually get to thinking in what's the possible, as opposed to focus on the negative aspect of it exclusively.
Thank you, Vince. I see Councilman Felder, you have a question, and then we'll see if there's other comments or questions for Mr. Pastor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Vince, you touched a little bit on it at the end there, but have we heard back from any of the businesses? Have we had any reception to this? I've seen some response online, but frankly, I don't think a lot of those people own buildings in the downtown. So,
Your Honor?
Yep, Mr. Pastor.
I have not, other than just what I've heard from others via social media regarding concerns, oppositions to it. And again, part of this process would require a couple of public hearings. The first would have been a hearing of necessity. And I think in many ways, that's a great opportunity to reach out to those affected property owners to address what this actually is, what it can do long-term, and why it was structured the way it was proposed. But that, I think with that not happening, at least with this immediate go-round, that it gives us an opportunity to do it informally, which may be long-term, maybe even more effective.
Councilman Lamore.
Thank you, Your Honor. I can address a little bit of that possibly. Being a business owner, being a property owner in downtown, the one dissenting vote from the CPC basically was concerned about the price tag that the business owners are going to be stuck with. And I understand it's, what is it, correct me if I'm wrong, Vince, 4 cents per square foot. Is that what we were talking about?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So it's not huge, but for the bigger ones, it does add up. So it's a concern, and they have to, and that was her concern, or I'm sorry, that was the one dissenting vote's concern. And they just, I think, wanted to give a little bit more clarification. And it was brought down fairly quickly to them, and I think they wanted a little bit more time to review it. So I think that may have been the biggest problem there, is just not understanding all that was coming at them all at once.
Vince, not any further. I see Councilman Michelangeli has his hand. No. Councilman Michelangeli.
Oh, got on mute.
Oh, there he goes.
Over the past 30 or 35 years, I've done a tremendous amount of consulting with downtowns throughout the Midwest. And I will tell you that in historic downtowns, 20% of the business owners contribute to the flowers, to the banners, to the special events, to advertising, and the other 80% of the property owners ride on their coattails. And they get the benefit from what the 20% do. And the beauty of a PSD is that everybody shares in it. The retailer, the office insurance agency, the attorney, the bank, the chiropractor, baker, they all share equally in contributions to what Vince had talked about relative to advertising, marketing, promoting, and beautification efforts in the downtown. So everybody's in it together. The other distinguishing factor between a downtown and a shopping center is the shopping center has one management entity, and all the tenants in the shopping center pay what is known as a CAM fee, which is a common area maintenance fee. And they pay that in addition to their rent. And that goes for advertising, marketing, making sure the parking lots, the snow is removed, making sure that things are maintained. In downtowns, we don't have CAMs. Everybody's an individual property owner. The PSD is an effort to try to get downtown to start thinking like it's a shopping district. that everybody is in it together. And then that's why you have the PSD and you have the annual assessment based on a per square foot basis. So it does open up a lot more opportunities, especially for businesses downtown that are not retail oriented, that don't contribute many times to what other retailers want to contribute towards. So it kind of puts a common, it gives everybody an even playing field. Now in downtown Monroe, probably one of the biggest contributors is going to be Merchant Bank because they own a lot of square footage and some of the other larger businesses. But overall, if a business is 1,500 square feet or 2,000 square feet, they're going to pay either $60, $80 a year towards this effort, which is, like Brian said, is not a big cost. It's money, but it's not a significant amount of money. So I would just advise the council, if we have the opportunity to do this, let's please do it. Because the other part of it is more of something that has occurred in Monroe for 30 years, ever since I've been involved in downtown development here. Every time we get to the precipice of doing something, people in town or people outside of town say it's a bad idea. But then on the other hand, I see letters to the editor and I get emails from residents saying, why can't we be like this downtown? But the other hand is every time we try to be like that downtown, we get overwhelmed with negative social media. And I'm just asking council, put the social media aside, because typically people on social media basically are negative about everything. When we tried converting Monroe Street from 5 to 3 lanes, we had a petition signed by 1,500 people, and based on an analysis of the petition, 90 to 95% lived outside the city of Monroe. So let's just start putting this stuff in context. That's all I'm asking the council. I think the PSD would be great for the downtown. I think it would be great for the community. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Councilman. So Vince, as I understand, this went before the Planning Commission as was just doing a review here and looking again at next steps, and then also some comments that were received. So it won't happen this year, but you have a thought and a process about extensions to the whatever groups have made contact. I know that Mr. Williams has joined us this evening as an interest. Obviously, he's, as he said, the chair of the DMBN, and of course we have the DDA, and we've had conversations at the DDA meeting regarding this. But I think there's probably some clarification, as you have alluded to, but also maybe time. But also, that doesn't appear to be this year, but there's opportunities for continuation and a discussion, but also maybe another opportunity in the future. Your thoughts?
And just lastly, I think don't, I've mentioned it to someone, don't think of, again, the opportunities of working with the city. We're working on now the refuse collection to try and get that off the curb, and some of it may be involved with more frequency pickup of some of the receptacles on the sidewalk. Well, you know what? If we have the PSD handle some of that responsibility and the city contracts for that, we accomplish it. We have the boots on the ground right there addressing what the immediate need is and monitoring it. Similarly with, whether it's parking or other maintenance related items. And so part of what I want to impress upon them is that it's not just exclusively, a special assessment. There's a chance to partner with a number of other folks, whether it's even donations or sponsorships for programs and events. And so part of it is to be honest with you, a lot of these, the organization already does that with the downtown, business network. So it's an extension that gets everybody in there. Is Council Member Iko Angeli included the residents who benefit from a viable and vibrant downtown. So I'll use this as an opportunity to try and reach out to, and I know Mr. Williams is a good gentleman to talk with, reasonable, and try and arrange for some opportunities where I can get in front of some people and address informally, how this structure can work, and I think to the best interest of all.
Thank you. Councilwoman Germain, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Your Honor. So Vince, the businesses that are owned and they're vacant, will they be charged as well, this assessment? Because I see it as maybe a catalyst to get them moving to maybe get someone in their buildings.
Oh, I sure hope so.
It would be assessed, basically equally for all properties that we have based on a square footage. And again, part of it is the city council ultimately has to approve the assessment rule. So you would see, if it got to that last step, you would see all of the property owners in how many square feet they have and what that assessment, whatever the rate is established, whether it's 4 cents, 3 cents, 2 cents, still have to be part of an approved assessment rule for council to approve.
Thank you.
Thank
Councilman,
you.
okay, thank you. Councilman Lamore?
Yeah, real quick for Vince, is that just the first floor or is it all floors?
All floors.
Thank you.
And again, I'll tell you the rationale is, and it's just recently that with principal shopping districts that you can now include residential as part of the assessment. I will tell you, we know where a lot of the residential refuse is going into some of these curbside receptacles. So there's a benefit to it, having them assessed and be a part of, that related type of maintenance. And so, but yeah, it would be, more than just the first floor. It'd be all property. Again, city council may decide when you look at the assessment roll, we leave it only to the first floor. That's ultimately something you can decide, but certainly in my case, I'd recommend to include everyone for that reason.
Thanks, Vince. I guess my only comment is because it just brought about the refuse there. I know there's been outreach on one street in the downtown as a pilot to see how we continue to move refuse off the street for pickup. I know there's, for the most part, has been embraced. There's a couple that are not, but I also noticed here recently those horrendous looking dumpsters in the alley are gone because now there's a place to put it that's enclosed and off-site just across the street. But those are things that I think that this does provide opportunities, because when you look at other streets and walk out of the building and just cram it into the trash can that's out there and it overflows and it sits on the curbside, and having it as a one-day pickup is, and the way in which it's being utilized is not a good sight as well. So I think these are the kind of conversations that need to be brought forth, that I know that both the residents, but also the business owners in those downtown don't like to see either. So I look forward to this moving forward for some future discussion and the outreach that you talked about, Vince. So this is a communication. If there's no other comments, is this something to be accepted or just moving forward?
I think just for information purposes, Your Honor.
Okay, very good. So we'll move forward then. Clerk Treasurer, the next item, please.
The next item is under public hearing, item 2998, public hearing to receive and review comments on the proposed capital improvements program budget for fiscal years 2021 through 2027. And there are no comments on file in the clerk treasurer's office.
Okay, so for the those present or other comments at this time, I'll open the public hearing on item 2998, the capital improvements program fiscal year 2021-2027. I'll start and see if there's any comments, those in attendance here this evening. Any comments regarding this public hearing on the capital improvements project? I see no hands raised. Last call, any comments? I'll just say I know that comes before for my comments, I know it comes before the council for action. In the council action, I do have a comment that I'll be making at that point rather than here at the public comment section, so we can move forward. Clerk, at this time we'll close the public hearing. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is item 3036, public hearing to receive and review comments on the proposed termination of the Brownfield redevelopment plan for 1150 Turns Drive. And there are no comments on file in the clerk's office.
I see there are a couple of attendees, I think, maybe speaking. They spoke at the Brownfield meeting, but I'm not going to speak for them, of course. Mr. Pasto, I know you want to give us some background information as for council, why this appears for a termination of the Brownfield redevelopment plan.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to let City Attorney Matthew Buds do the introduction for this item.
So I guess looking at Mr. Buds, being this is a public hearing, Is this something that we should do the public hearing first before that?
Your Honor, I think we can prepare in either way. If you want very brief introduction, I can do that. And then we can have the public hearing, or if you would like to just see if there are those that want to speak from the public, and then we can move forward from there. I'm happy in either way.
Okay, maybe just for, I guess, a broad understanding for those that are for council, as well as all in attendees and that are here, just in general of what this means and what this is. Then maybe some of the, I think you have some additional information you want to share with council as well. We'll do that during the council action, but we'll hear just, if you could, overview, and then we'll go to public comment. I think that might blend well together.
Very good, Your Honor. In 2017, the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority recommended that City Council approve a brownfield plan for the former Knights Inn Hotel at 1150 Turnus Drive. That brownfield plan was ultimately approved by City Council in September of 2017. Since that time, there has been action as far as demolition of the previously existing hotel, but no construction has begun regarding the project that was intended at Comfort Suites that I think council will likely remember that we had a fair bit of discussion on, and that there had been a PUD approved for that site. That PUD approval came in January of 2020. The demolition permit for this property was acquired in August of 2018. And since that time, and that the demolition was finally completed in May of 2019, there has been no construction activity at that site. The Brownfield Redevelopment Act provides that if the project has not occurred within 2 years, that the legislative body, that being the City Council, has the right to terminate the brownfield plan. And that is what is before you, given the period of time that has elapsed since the adoption of the brownfield plan in September of 2017 and the present, with no construction.
Okay, as an overview, I think that at least gives us the idea that it's coming before us then to terminate. Mr. Pastu, it's the, well, I'll stop because we'll see if there's public comments to this at this time. So at this time, I'll open the public hearing on item 3036, the public hearing to terminate the Brownfield redevelopment plan for 1150 Turnus Drive. I see we have one hand raised, clerk, and then we'll see if there's others. So we'll start there. Mindful that during public, please identify yourself, where you may be residing from or calling from. And then mindful of the time limit of three minutes, but there's also, if you're related to the council action and related to maybe the owner, there may be opportunities to speak there as well. Clerk Treasurer.
I moved the person into, they can speak now.
Okay, Mr. Patel, Ajit Patel, you're just identify yourself, please, and your comments.
Oh yeah, my name is Ajit Patel, and I'm a member of the LLC. As you're aware, we have been in contact with, started with Monroe BDC back in 2017 with Mr. Tim Lake, and we got very far. We had purchased the property, which was the closed Knights Inn building. We had constant discussions with the building departments. And we got the demolition done in 2019, as you stated. Then 2019, late 2020, we went to get the building permits. And even before that, there were a lot of changes to be asked from the franchise drawing, including the amount of bricks to be used and what type of material to be used. So that all took a lot of time. Finally, we got the drawings done, and then, city is asking for 3 copies of the physical drawings, in this electronic age. But regardless of all that, we had submitted everything. We even got the building permit paid in full in May 2020, and our intention was to start right away. But as you're aware, the COVID started, and because of COVID, we could not find the contractors to align this. And also the contractor that we used for the demolition, they said that we don't want to use that contractor because he's not licensed in Michigan. He has a lot of experience in Indiana, but they told us to get a Michigan licensed contractor. So in any case, we are ready to start the, the project, construction project. In this March coming up, we got like the bars for the basement, everything is lined up and we are ready to go. So we urge you to not take away the brownfield agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Patel. And I think we'll see as we get into the council action, if there's inquiries from the council for any additional information, whether it be from Mr. Pastu or the developer.
Your Honor, you have another
Oh,
person.
yes, I see that.
I move Sarah Jo Shipley.
Thank you. Sarah Jo, just identify yourself, please, and your comments.
Hi, my name is Sarah Jo Shipley. I work for ASTI Environmental, who was the consultant that developed the brownfield plan that was adopted for this project. So after reviewing the project and where it stands, what we propose is to amend the brownfield plan so that we don't have to have this one expire and then try and get another one passed. We just amend the dates to this existing one so that the construction can begin with no delay.
With the, well, I'll this public hearing, I'll ask questions later. Anything further, Sarah?
No, that's it right as of right now.
All right, very good. Thank you. We'll see if there's other public
I
comment.
don't see any other hands, Your Honor.
I do not either. So I'll see if there's any other comments during the public hearing. If no further comments now, at this time, close the public hearing. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item will be under council action, item 3035, termination of brownfield redevelopment plan for 1150 Turnus Drive.
Thank you. I'll just see if there's any information, Mr. Pastu, introduction further than was there, or if there's additional information that is needed for council. And I see Councilman Michelangelo has his hand up as well.
If I may, Your Honor, if Mr. Buds, there's a couple items out there that were offered up that he may wish to discuss.
Mr. Buds?
Your Honor, just to give council a bit of additional background as far as this is concerned, the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority met last Thursday in the morning, had the opportunity for public to comment and the applicant on these items as well. And there was some similar discussion at that point in time. The BRA at that point did recommend to City Council that they terminate the Brownfield plan. A bit of history that I guess I just want to give so that the record is clear, at least from the city's perspective. This brownfield plan was put into place in September of 2017. There was no demo permit applied for the property until August of 2018, almost a year later. And the demolition was not concluded until May 23rd of 2019. In the meantime, there was discussion that was ongoing regarding the PUD and regarding the site process. I will say, I think in fairly speaking on behalf of Mr. Green and Mr. Greenhall and those involved in planning and building, that this has not been a smooth process as far as that's concerned, and that it has taken a number of iterations of drawings and process to get this through to site plan approval, which ultimately the PUD was approved January 21 of 2020. The applicant is correct that they have paid an amount or submitted a check for their building permit. However, up until this point in time, there has been no licensed contractor. That's a requirement for the issuance of that permit, and that remains the case as we sit here today. So as far as that goes, I know that Mr. Green and Mr. Greenhall mentioned to me that there were at least 6 different disapproved submittals in preparation for trying to get this project moving forward. I will also say that the idea of an amended brownfield plan has been introduced for the first time here tonight. I don't know that this is one that necessarily would need an amendment if the project had just gone forward as expected. I will say the tables that were attached to the brownfield plan had an expected tax capture that would have begun. If you give me just a moment, I'm going to flip here. The idea was that there would start to be incremental tax value available for capture in 2018, with up to 1.3 and change in taxable capture available for 2019. And that essentially that would move through the point when the plan would be paid back to the developer for their demolition costs sometime at that point. The prediction was, if I'm reading the table correctly, in 2024 or 2025. But that the plan did have a longer potential period of time, but that it wasn't anticipated that the full timeline of the plan would be needed for that payback to occur. So that's where I'll end, unless there are any questions or concerns, or if anyone else from the city wants to weigh in as far as those items.
Sure. I see Councilman Michelangelo. He started with his hand up. So your comments, and then we'll see if there's follow-up from other council members.
Thanks, Your Honor. I just wanted to ask the administration what their position is.
Well, I think, if I may, Your Honor.
Yes, please do.
I think that it's been a very trying process, and I say that because we went through several iterations with the PUD process, and then the numerous submittals for the construction drawings, in which the building department, and I can have Mr. Green attest to it, is here's what we need. We can't have you submit all of these separately, whether it's plumbing, mechanical. They have to be a full set, which we find to be reasonable. Most large projects would have that. So, and then there's just this long delay between last, June till now, where there was just crickets, and until we initiated the process to terminate the brownfield. So I don't know if Mark or Jeff have anything else they'd like to add to it, but I think in a summary, that's where we're at.
Your Honor,
yes.
Is there and this may be for Mr. Green, was there a termination, an expiration date on the PD and the PUD that, after approval, if nothing happened, it would expire?
Well, what we rezoned to PUD was the zoning from a commercial zoning to a PUD. So the PUD runs with the land, that rezoning. As Mr. Pastu and Mr. Buzz has indicated, we did go through a number of iterations, which council was a part of, looking at the building site plans, the elevations, and we eventually did get those worked out. That was a time-consuming process. And so the PUD is in place. The site plan ultimately was approved, but as everyone has indicated, is we have not made any real progress since that point in time. And there's been a number of conversations that I think Mr. Patel has had with the building department regarding a contractor. And I think the building department has tried to work with them, tried to get a contractor that is licensed on the job and working that out. And unfortunately, Sam Paul, the company that they represent, the LLC that Mr. Patel and Mr. Patel represent, have not yet done that. And I don't know if they have one in place at this point in time.
Okay, thank you.
I know Mr. Cochran has his hand up. He's probably going to give us some more review, but I'll take Councilman Lamore's question. That way we'll see if it gets answered that way or in another fashion.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just a quick question regarding the process here, as far as if we stop everything here with the brownfield redevelopment, are we basically putting them back at start again, or can we pick up where they left off? How is this going to work in terms, because you don't want to lose a building project, obviously, and to go back and go through all that work again. However, we don't want to be messing around with this forever either. So tell me what the process is for this, because we're kind of at a different, how would I say it, a difference of opinion, where they're saying they're trying to get this done. We're saying, well, you've had all this time. Where do we go? That's my question.
Sure, Mr. Buds will probably cover that. I know that came up during the brownfield. It's a similar question. And there are some timelines that are associated with that. And what that means if it's the plan is terminated, whether they have the opportunity, but what happens if they have the opportunity to resubmit and what that means in relation to the work that's been done.
If you don't mind, Your Honor, just one other thing. Is it a possibility to amend the brownfield? Because according to Mr. Buds, this is the first time he's heard of that as well.
Sure, Mr. Buds.
Options.
Your Honor, let me take the second part first. So certainly there's always the possibility to amend a brownfield plan. What I'm suggesting, and certainly if council wants to hear from Ms. Shipley from ASTI again, that's certainly fine. If the idea is that we need an amendment to the brownfield plan, that's something that certainly council could consider, but that has never yet been proposed before tonight to either the Brownfield Authority or the city, as far as I'm aware. And I would also say, I'm not sure that that's a necessity to the extent this project will go forward if council desires and doesn't terminate the brownfield plan. There were clearly enough years built into that plan that if the project moved forward as anticipated, there's essentially a short window when there would have been tax capture to pay back the expenses. Now let me kind of go back a little bit more to square one to address the first part of that. Essentially, what's before the council today is the idea of terminating the brownfield plan, which does not have any direct relationship to the site plan approval nor the PUD rezoning. This is a question of the brownfield financing, which to go back, this was a local only plan that was designed to reimburse the developer for the costs that they put into the demolition and the site preparation. Those were the only really eligible activities that were reported and indicated for potential reimbursement. So if everything had gone according to plan, the demolition would have occurred, the construction would have begun, the property would have increased substantially in value based on the existence of a brand new hotel on that property, and based on the tax capture from that increased value in the property, then there would have been a reimbursement to the developer for the, I'm going to use round numbers, between $200,000 and $230,000, if I recall correctly, in demolition and site preparation expenditures that they had. If the plan is terminated, that will no longer be available to them for reimbursement. The question did come up with the BRA as to whether they could reapply for a plan. And I will just say, to attempt to reapply for expenses that had been incurred nearly 3 years before a plan would be adopted, I would say would be highly unusual and not something that I would recommend. So to me, that decision is one of, if the financing plan here is terminated, I see that as a final decision as far as that reimbursement. Then it becomes a business question for the property owner whether they wish to proceed not having that possibility of that reimbursement for those demolition costs.
So I'm going to go Mr. Cochran, because I think me some additional information, and Councilman Lynch, I see you have your hand up as well. Mark, if you would.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, I was debating whether or not I was going to say anything, but since Mr. Pastu asked if I had anything to add, I figured I would include my 2 cents. Since the brownfield plan was approved nearly 4 years ago, it has been a very frustrating process for all of us involved in it. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The developer was given 30 days notice that the Brownfield Authority and City Council was going to provide public hearing to consider the termination of the brownfield plan, and that's when we heard from the developer for the first time since last June. I'll say, as Mr. Green indicated, we still have not received confirmation that there's a licensed contractor involved. So from my perspective, we're no closer today than we were last June to a construction in March. I hear the concern about COVID related to this project, and I would just counter that and remind City Council that at the same time this project was going on last spring, we put out to bid, the city did, for the demolition of a 250,000 square foot property. We restored the site when we bid out and designed and bid out first phase of infrastructure and had it installed on that site, all during a COVID pandemic, in spite of the governor in the state shutting down the construction industry for about a month or so, we were still able to proceed. So, those are my 2 cents related to this project. I talked to Mr. Patel when he first got the letter to talk about the Brownfield Authority public hearing, as well as this public hearing. At the Brownfield Authority meeting, we did talk about the lack of a licensed contractor, and since that meeting, I can't speak for Mr. Green or Mr. Greenhall, but I haven't received confirmation that there's been a licensed contractor assigned to this project. So that's my 2 cents.
Councilman Michelangeli.
Matt, yes, thanks, Your Honor. Matt, you seem to have the Brownfield plan in front of you.
I do.
What was the time frame? What was the length, the duration of the Brownfield capture?
Give me just a moment. The years for reimbursement were anticipated to be 7 years for the local only tax capture, with a planned duration of 25 years, which I'm so built in, right? Some additional time in the event that there was need for further capture, but the plan anticipated 7 years for the reimbursement to occur.
And that reimbursement was to start in 2019.
I want to say it was 2018. Give me just a second. I'll flip back to the table here. The anticipation was that there would be, I'll say in 2017, 50% completion of the project, but no capture at that point. 2018 anticipated 100% complete with a $680,755 new incremental taxable value, and 2019 being then kind of the full capture, starting on a value of $1.361 and $535. So $1,361,535 in 2019, and going up from that point forward, with an anticipated, if I'm reading this correctly, quickly on the fly here, that the capture would be then complete and the developer would have been reimbursed at the conclusion of 2024.
Okay, so
and
really,
then there would have been a period for local site revolving fund capture thereafter.
so he's got 3 years left.
On the anticipated years for reimbursement, yes, but I will say the plan did have built in a 25-year potential duration. So there is, I'll say, some flexibility, at least in my opinion, in that plan in that manner.
I guess, Your Honor, my suggestion is it seems like it's been 3 or 4 years to get this project up and running, which is, for a hotel which is franchised, very unusual to take this long. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't know the franchise, but isn't there a new hotel that's been constructed in 2020 during COVID on the east side of I-75, isn't it, in Frenchtown?
I believe there may be 2, but yes.
We have a new construction. My suggestion would be is that we move to adopt the resolution to terminate the plan and give it a date specific, like May 1st, that if we do not get a contractor and construction does not start by a date specific, then we've agreed that we're terminating the plan.
Okay, and we'll see if that's a thought, and we'll see if we get to a motion. We'll get some other comments. Clerk Treasurer LaVoy, you had your hand up, and I want to make sure that we're meeting some of those needs.
I did have my hand up simply because I wanted to call your attention to the fact that someone in attendance has their hands raised, and I just wanted you to be aware.
Yep, and I see that. I wanted to get any final comments here, and I see that Raj Patel has his hand up, so we'll take that comment as well. Councilman Michelangeli, did you have follow up? Your hands up. I can.
No.
Okay. We got a couple more council members. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Councilman. Before Mr. Patel, if you'd hold for a moment before we move you forward by the clerk, Councilman Lamore and then Councilwoman Germaini have a comment. Councilman Lamore.
Just wanted to say that I think John's very reasonable on his what he's talking about there. I think that sounds pretty good. Giving him that opportunity, but it's a short window, and I think that it's an achievable thing. Just get it going.
Very good. Councilwoman Germaini.
I will also agree with the two councilmen, but what happens if we do terminate it? What happens to the property? Does it go up for sale? What happens?
Yeah, they do own the property. I can't speak for what that is. And so I guess Mr. Budge is nodding his head, but I guess I'll take the legal response to that rather than mine.
No, Your Honor, I think you are right on this. This doesn't have anything to do again with ownership, zoning, site plan approval. This is just a question of, is the brownfield financing in place or not? Your Honor, if it's not too forward to me, I would make a suggestion rather than it be a specific item or items to occur. My thought would be potentially then essentially laying this item on the table or postponing consideration of this item until a specific meeting at the council's recommendation, just because I'll say, given the history of this project, I could see the possibility of arguments of were conditions met or things like that. And I think it would just be better if that's the inclination of council to set that for a date specific for further proceedings. That's just my thought as to a way to handle that procedurally.
And I see how that might meet what some of the discussion was about setting a deadline. And I guess if you don't include all the items that are in there or just meeting the expectations, what can be done. But I understand your point. Clerk Treasurer Lavoie, I think Mr. Patel, I'd seen his hand. So let's hear from Mr. Patel. I do have a couple of comments, but I'll wait till after he speaks.
All right, I've done it, Your Honor.
Mr. Patel, Raj Patel, your name, please, and your comments.
Yeah, my name is Raj Patel, and I'm a member of the LLC as well as Ajit Patel, and we did pull the permit to tear up the building. The same guy who did the tear up the building, that's the same guy who tried to pull the permit. And first time he pulled the permit to tear the building down, which is no problem. And then after we went to pull the permit for a new building, the Bill Green said, no, you're not licensed. So I'm like, okay. So I don't understand. Is there something building department do their own thing or whatnot? But now finally we went to the state of Michigan and take the test, and we passed the test. So we're just waiting for the committee to get our license from state of Michigan. So hopefully we get the license, and it shouldn't be a whole lot to do. You know what I'm saying? So we will definitely ask you to give us some time, just like you guys talking about, until May 1st or end of the May, and we will be on before that. So
thank you, Mr. Patel.
Your Honor, there's
one
more comment from Sarah Jo Shipley.
Yes, there is. I'll take her comment before we move forward with any other comments in council action. Sarah Jo.
So this project was qualified as a brownfield because it was blighted, and the eligible activities had to deal with removing that blight. Mr. Patel has demoed the building, removed the blight. They have been part of their obligation with the brownfield plan. Now they need the building built in order to increase the taxable value to pay them back for that demo cost. But they did honor the eligible activities so far that are in the brownfield plan.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah Jo. I understand your comment. I understand that because of that, it's blighted as it was. So I see Councilman has his hand up. I want to make a couple comments. So, this should have progressed forward much better than it has. I think that should be agreed upon by all. I think communication of what is done and what isn't done is a question, just as we heard just now about the finally took the state test and but it doesn't hear that was passed, hasn't heard what the outcome of that is, but they're waiting to get the license approved. So that tells me there still is not a licensed contractor that Mr. Patel is working with, when the options could have been finding a licensed contractor. Took this route, which of course took more time. I think Councilman Michelangelo said there's other things that seem to get through, just as Mr. Cochran said, that got built and got completed during this time. If the, I'm sure others have gone by the site as well, but it was blighted in one fashion, and now it's just simply blighted in a different fashion. The site is not been cared for. There's nothing there that's in sight of being that there's going to be some type of development. I heard at the Brownfield meeting that I attended that there was items that were already delivered on site, and that's not the case. I think Mr. Vince kind of underscored, the items on licensing and the contractor. So I just, if council wishes to move forward with some type of a time frame before termination, I think we need to be specific what that is, and not just on certain items of what we might be asking for. I think it's kind of the discussion that Councilman Michelangelo started and Councilman Lamore, that if council is going to go toward that, there can't be a window that extends because of some other problem or some the deficiency of a license or the building department, which has not been the problem from what I've listened to. In fact, you cannot continue to submit plans that don't meet the expectation to be approved. And just because the building, just because somebody can demo a building doesn't mean they have the license and authority to build a building. And I think there's a difference there. So again, it's not what was said and what wasn't said. So it concerns me that we're here this many years later with this problem. Councilman Michelangelo, and I see Councilman Felder has his hand up, but he's not weighed in yet. If we could take Councilman Felder's first, Councilman Michelangelo, that'd be, yep. Andrew.
Yes, I suppose two things. I'd be happy tabling the motion until the beginning of the construction season, and we'll assess at that point whether any progress that the firm claims that is going to be made soon actually materializes. But Mr. Patel's comments confused me. Is it necessary that their firm themselves be licensed, or do they just need to contract to a licensed Michigan contractor?
Mr. Buds, I'll stay out of, or Mr. Green, one of the two. Maybe Mr. Green, I don't care.
Well, yeah, they do not have to necessarily be a contractor themselves. They can hire a contractor, which is what they've tried to do. They indicated that the demolition contractor, they were going to have him act as the general contractor for the building. And as the mayor has indicated, that one doesn't necessarily mean the other. But in this particular case, the building department was trying to help them by allowing them to use a contractor that wasn't licensed to do the demolition. And typically the building department will allow that to happen if in fact they're not doing a demolition that involves utilities, water and sewer, those kind of things where they're tapping in or closing off. They will oftentimes allow someone to use an unlicensed contractor. And again, that as a benefit to them. And that's what they were trying to do here, was help Sam Paul get going on this so that they could get some work done.
Thank you. Councilman Felder, any follow-up?
Well, just coming to the realization that, not a local firm, not going to use local labor, has no intention of doing that. Otherwise, it would have hired one by now, because goodness, if you look at our 2020 construction season, we certainly got a heck of a lot done. You hear all the time that government's so inefficient and private industry is the way to go. Well, in this case, it's the opposite. We were getting projects done right and left, and you guys seem unable to get to make it happen. I mean, the excuses I'm just entirely disinterested in. I mean, about physical copies getting into the building department, that's a week delay, maybe, if you weren't expecting it. When you guys first proposed this project, I remember you coming in saying, we've done hotels here, we've done hotels there, we have experience doing it. And you guys seem like kindergartners coming in and doing this the first time. It's all the stuff that, well, I never know I needed that. And have you ever done this before? I'm so worried that we're going to have the same issues as we do with some of the buildings down on Monroe Street, that we're going to have these people hold and do nothing with for the longest time. And this project isn't going to materialize, or worse, it's going to get partially built and never finished, maybe because of inexperience or maybe because it's not well financed, and then have another firm have to come in and demo a half-built building. I'm terribly concerned about the experience of the contractors and the firms that are involved in this process.
Thank you, Councilman. You know, I think your point, at least about the, you know, if it started, then where are we when it's not getting finished, is in my mind as well. Councilman Michelangeli.
Your Honor, I think we have to put this in perspective where the brownfield incentive isn't providing incentive for the hotel to be built. It's basically reimbursing the developer for what they've already done, which is the demolition. So even though if we take the brownfield away, they still have the opportunity to build the building. They're just not going to get reimbursed for the demolition cost.
If I may,
my suggestion is that we keep the developer on a tight leash, and we postpone this until April 5th. That gives them six and a half weeks to get their contractor that's got the license and show the city that they are moving forward. I don't want to give them 2 months or 3 months, because if they're waiting until May or June to start construction, the chances are they're not going to start construction until 2022. So my suggestion is we just postpone this until the 5th, and it gives them we're indicating to them that if you can't get your act together by April 5th, we are then going to terminate the brownfield, and you will lose your opportunity to get reimbursed your demolition cost. And then if you want to proceed later on with the hotel, well, that's fine. I would encourage that, but you're not going to get reimbursed.
Thank you, Councilman. Any final comments before we move forward? I know Mr. Patel has his hand up, but we're not going to get into the dialogue of what is or isn't. It's pretty clear that the work isn't done, and I think Councilman Michelangeli said it well. What's before us today on terminating the brownfield plan or not? There was an option been thrown out regarding extension. Councilman Felder, I understand when you said construction season, but I think we need to be definitive on that. I think that's kind of what I hear from you as well, whatever that time frame is. And if this moves forward with something we're looking for the developer to do, I think the time frame that's mentioned is probably as far as I would go, but I don't know why it's not already here, but I feel the same way as Councilman Felder does, but I'm always willing to, if they say they have it and they say they're going to do it, but I haven't seen it. But any comments, other comments from the council members?
Your Honor, I'll make a motion that we postpone the termination of the brownfield plan until April the 5th.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion by Councilman Michelangeli, supported by Councilman Lamore, that regarding item 3035, the termination of the brownfield redevelopment plan at 1150 Turners Drive, that action be postponed until our April 1st. Yeah, we have an April 1st meeting. Yep.
April 5th.
5th, I'm sorry, 5th. 5th City Council meeting for action. Before we take the roll, I have one question. No, I can't remember what it was. I was going to ask Mr. Buds a question. Had to do with the date and the time frame before. I guess I'll just keep it generic. I can't think of specifically what I was going to say. Mr. Buds, any items or concern, and I'll get Mr. Green's comment as well, regarding this date or this type of motion being ability to postpone and have a specific date like this?
No, Your Honor, from my perspective, the statute allows the legislative body to make a determination and terminate if as long as 30 days notice were given and the applicant has an opportunity to be heard. I guess for purposes of the record, I would ask the applicant that they are comfortable with the not comfortable, that they acknowledge that we will take this matter up again at that April 5th item, that they are present here today, obviously, and that they acknowledge that as notice that the matter will again be heard. But I think our activity today satisfies the statutory requirement that they be given notice and an opportunity to be heard before a termination would be considered. Obviously, I would encourage that we welcome their input and opportunity to be heard again at the April 5th meeting. So I don't have any issue as far as that's concerned.
Well, it's not a public meeting, as I understand, but it is an action item that on the council action for action. They know that they were listening. I know Mr. Raj Patel has departed, but I see Ajit Patel is still here. Mr. Green, did you have a final comment before we take the, okay.
No, I did not, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. If there's other comments from the council, I'm not necessarily going to ask the Mr. Patel to confirm what he understands. I think both he and Sarah Jo Shipley are still attendees. And I think the first thing we do if this passes is a direct communication from the city to them in the morning. See no other comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Echoangeli,
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Jermaine,
Yes.
Lamore,
Yes.
Felder,
Yes.
Whitman,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes.
All right, the next item on the agenda is also under council action, item 2999, fiscal year 2021-2027 capital improvements program budget adoption.
Mr. Pastu, any comments, introductions? I know we've had work sessions and discussion, but any introduction?
Mr. Green, anything you want to add to it?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Pastu, I'd be happy to do a brief introduction of the capital improvements budget at this point, if you'd like.
Yes.
Okay. Again, Jeffrey Green, Director of Community Development. The city charter requires that a public hearing for the annual capital improvements program budget be held the third week in February, with adoption of that budget taking place by the end of the month. As council earlier held a public hearing at this meeting, in fact, which is the third week and constitutes actually, again, the last regular meeting of February, administration is submitting the proposed FY 2021 through 2027 CIP budget this evening for adoption, which is before you now. The Citizens Planning Commission, as required by city charter and state enabling legislation, has also reviewed the proposed budget and made a recommendation for approval to City Council. As discussed throughout this process, this has been before you on a number of occasions. We've had it at work sessions. We've had it establishing the dates for public hearings and those type of things. The capital improvement budget covers 6 years. The first year is the capital budget, where actual dollars are committed for approved projects. The remaining 5 years of the 6-year schedule constitutes the capital improvements program. This 5-year span provides a snapshot of projects that departments and agencies that we fund through the capital improvements program are proposing in upcoming years. These two have values attached, albeit these are estimated costs at this point. Capital improvements are typically large-scale projects with a fixed cost, things such as parks, roads, infrastructure, sidewalks, fire trucks, and the like. So in application, the CIP budget is a list of capital items which acknowledges and identifies current and anticipated demands by the city. Projects may be a one-time expenditure, or they may be phased in over multiple years. The approval and implementation of these capital improvements results in new or expanded public facilities and services, or a continuation of projects or programs that have already been established. The CIP budget is also a recognition that demand for new and improved facilities and services generally outpaces revenues needed to satisfy all these demands, hence the prioritization of projects and funding. Regarding this year's budget, it's relatively straightforward and very similar to budgets seen by this body in the past. I believe everyone has had an opportunity to review the proposed budget. And as such, I won't go into particulars of individual projects. I will note that this year's proposed general fund allocation is just over $843,000. The city of Monroe has historically spent approximately 1 mil of general fund dollars toward the capital budget. So this year's allocation is slightly less than that, but there is a number of other funding sources to be used to fund specific projects. The capital improvements program budget provides transparency of operation in that it allows not only elected officials, but also the community at large to see and comment on upcoming fiscal year's budget, as well as the estimated total cost that undertaking a project may have over the span of a number of years. And by prioritizing and tracking projects through this 6-year process, the capital improvements program provides insights into projects that have been completed, as well as a continual monitoring of the status of projects that are underway and span multiple years. So with that, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to answer any questions related to the process for capital improvements.
Sorry, I muted. I'll see if there are any questions from Mr. Green, and then I have a comment as we move forward. Councilman Lord, do you have a question for Mr. Green?
Gonna make a motion, Your Honor.
Okay, before that, I just want to make a comment. When you look at capital improvements, I appreciate the background that Mr. Green gave. And when you look at you mentioned the general fund, and what's being recommended is near $10 million in projects. And while there's an item within this that I didn't support in our previous discussions, and I still don't support a particular line item in here, that doesn't mean I don't think that itself should inhibit moving forward. But I do want to speak to the item because it's an item that the council has had some discussion on. We're waiting further discussion, and that's within the fire department on an ambulance. We've made no decision on the future of what the public safety department will look like, both in police and fire, and including the need of an ambulance for transport. And while it's only $40,000 from the overall, it's not significant in that amount, but it is significant when we had other items that we talked about that didn't make it on here. And one of the last discussions was about a opportunity to further one of the parks plans regarding the mill race. We've asked for information at one of the meetings I did about the use of the current vehicle, and don't have those responses or what intended use will be. I find that the fact sheet has some conflict to it, but I also understand, because the amount in which it is, and we should all understand that as well, is this will come back to council when it comes time to approve a purchase, because it is the amount of $40,000 is what's being requested, but the cost may be $35,000. So I know the conversation will come back up to council, and I'll look forward to that. That does not mean I'm not going to support the capital improvements. There's so much great work here that the council and staff and administration have put in that we need to move forward. But I just felt the necessity that I think is important to share what I don't support in here and the reasons why, and as I stated before. Councilman Moore.
Thank you, Your Honor. I make a motion to adopt the fiscal year 2021 to 2027 capital improvements program budget.
I support it.
There's a motion by Councilman Moore, supported by Councilman Michelangeli on item 2999, the fiscal year 2021-2027 capital improvements program budget adoption. There's no further questions or comments. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Michelangeli,
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Jermaine,
Yes.
Wilmore,
Yes.
Felder,
Yes.
Whitman,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes. Clerk, next item, please.
The next item is the consent agenda and approval of payments. Item B, the amount should read $820,792.78, 820792.78.
Thank you. Any items on the consent agenda that council wishes to have pulled for further discussion? Any items from council? Seeing none. Items from those present this evening that wish to have pulled for further discussion off the consent agenda?
I see no hands raised.
I see no hands. A motion would be in order. I see Councilman Felder.
Yes, Your Honor. I would make a motion that all items on the consent agenda be accepted, placed on file, recommendations carried out, and resolutions adopted.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Felder, supported by Councilman Lamore, that all items on the consent agenda be accepted, placed on file, recommendations, and resolutions adopted. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Agwangeli,
Yes.
Vining,
Yes.
Jermaine,
yes,
Lamore,
Yes.
Felder,
Yes.
Whitman,
yes,
Mayor Clark.
Yes. Clerk, next item, please.
I have no further items, Your Honor.
It's February. Councilman Michelangeli.
Thanks, Your Honor. Wanted to tell Jeff, I thought the Community Development Department did a really nice job on putting the CIP budget together. I thought it was very informative, well organized. My appreciation. I had asked during the work session, and Mr. Pastu said he was going to have Patrick Lewis weigh in. The question regarding how did we do with the snow emergency and snow removal?
Looking to see if Mr. Lewis is he a panelist yet?
He's on. I can make him a panelist if that's what's your
Could
preference.
you? Yes.
All right. It should just take a second.
Yeah.
Well, he was promoted to panelist.
I see him.
There he is.
Mr. Lewis.
Good evening. Hi, sorry, I was trying to get my settings going here. I hadn't turned the camera on yet. I've been with you the whole time though.
Okay, you would.
Sure. I don't know how lengthy and how detailed you want me to get on this one, but I can.
Well, I see. I think in a sense of there's there were some positive comments, some things that were recognized that maybe needed attention. So overall, a review of the night from the snow emergency and through and where we're at, and more equally important, what's happening now and what we can expect through the next day or so.
Certainly, Your Honor. Again, Honorable Mayor and Council, Patrick Lewis, Director of Engineering and Public Services. I'll spare you all the stats I have, but except for a couple of them, the City of Monroe street network is about 83 miles of street. And I did a little number crunching while we were waiting here. And we're going to, with just under a foot of snow, we're going to move 400,000 tons of snow off our street system by the time we're all said and done here. So certainly, as you might expect, that's a pretty big undertaking. We've been more or less working around the clock since 7 or 8 last night. I can't remember the exact time we got called in. We've pretty much been on split shifts. We do have 12 Teamsters available to us, and we focused most of our efforts on the overnight. In fact, just about all of our efforts on the major street system, as you might expect. We have 4 primary salt trucks, and we just kept running in circles because the whole idea is we want to keep those in good shape, because if our major street system isn't functional, we can't go anywhere. We did call in the remaining Teamsters we had at 4 a.m. So we basically had our whole crew of 12 guys in from about 4 till noon. And we did stabilize the major streets until we got to the morning hours when the snow stopped. We did bounce over and pick up a few local routes in the Godfrey Borges neighborhood and Toll Rosler, because that's where garbage day was today. So we were trying to avoid getting the trash trucks stuck. Besides those, we didn't really touch any of the local streets until later in the day here. We are working overnight on all of the local street, the through sections, but I will point out that we're not done. We've got about half the local street system has been plowed now. I just talked to our superintendent about 5 minutes ago, anticipating that I wanted to get kind of up to the minute report. We just had shift change at 8. So we've got, I believe all the local streets are done on the north side, moving east towards Telegraph. We've got everything up to Telegraph. And we did the W streets. Again, that's anticipating garbage day tomorrow. And we're going to start hitting some dead ends tonight as well. A couple questions I do get from, speaking of dead ends, phone was ringing mostly off the hook today, but one of the common questions we get is, why don't you just do the dead ends when you're in the neighborhoods? And our answer to that is we try to get as much of what I'll call basic mobility to a neighborhood as quickly as we can. That, and we do use different equipment to haul those dead ends out. We oftentimes will bring in pickups, skid loaders, regular loaders, depending on whether we have to haul them out or not. I did want to point out, I promise you I wouldn't give you too many stats, but I'll give you a couple more here. And gave this to the city manager today too, for him to look at. We actually have 105 dead ends and cul-de-sacs on our street system, 105. And there's about 8 miles of those. So roughly 10% of our street system is, we've got to call in the pickups, smaller units, which are a lot less efficient. So that's the operation that usually takes us the longest to get completed. We did this morning, and it's a balancing act, and I'll directly address Councilman Lamore's question, because he did have it on the parking stalls downtown and the parking areas. Sometimes we'll get them early on, and sometimes we won't. It depends where it falls in the event and how big the event is. If we're at a point where the major streets are stabilized and we've gotten our local street system done, we will generally try to spend more attention on downtown first thing in the morning before people start to park on the street, or as the people have left that are residents before the business traffic gets there. We this time opted for parking lots about 4 a.m. when the shift came in, because we felt we could do those quicker. I'll say on a per space basis, they're more efficient. We couldn't do it all, so we picked those this time. Sometimes we're able to grab them, sometimes we're not. The bump out bays downtown are a bigger problem because we have to go in and out. So again, a little less efficient there. But the thing I did want to point out is that we're still working on all of it, and we're going to try to get those bays tonight. I wouldn't think there'd be any major issue with that, as long as there aren't cars parked in them. We are still under a snow emergency, at least until the major streets are plowed curb to curb, which many of them are. But obviously the downtown streets would not be, because we haven't been able to get into those bays. So we'd like to encourage people to please stay off the streets the best you can. That's why we wanted to prioritize those parking lots this morning. We're anticipating overnight we should have all the local streets done, and I can't make any promises on the dead ends, but we're going to try to at least plow them, knowing that we're going to be spending time tomorrow loading out. A lot of those terminate the cul-de-sacs. Obviously there's homes at the end. The dead ends, some of them terminate into the woods, some of them terminate into private property. And a lot of them, we do have to haul the snow out, which means we got to get a truck in there and loaders. Probably nobody cares. We haven't hit the airport yet. We do try to get the airport runway within like 48 hours, but that's obviously a lower priority, tends to be then. We certainly don't like to get on that before we get our street system opened up. That's probably it. We're going to be doing a lot of cleanup operations into Thursday, and we're not sure. We may get more snow on Thursday, and I won't speculate yet. We're still talking about doing a downtown haul out this weekend, but we're trying to stage that in time. We want to get our guys some rest after they've, guys and gals, after we get our primary operations taken care of, and get them at least 12 hours rest before we were to do something downtown. So I'll leave it at that and see if there's any questions, but I could probably go on all night.
Councilman Michelangeli, I think
Good.
I think is what you're looking for. Councilman Whitman, you have your hand up.
Yes. They did my dead end at 7:30. I'm
Tonight?
grateful. Yes,
Okay, good.
I'm happy.
Well, good. I can't make that same promise for every resident, and some of it's random when we start, but it also is because your street is garbage day tomorrow.
Right.
So that's why we did focus on that neighborhood.
He had to move some garbage cans to turn around.
I
So,
imagine.
I'm grateful though, and it worked out.
Okay, good.
Patrick, I think there's some information here that at least might be helpful for some. I think listening to not only the process that's in place on a I'll say traditional, just move forward as it is, time of day when it snows, when it ends, what the priorities may be, I think is pretty clear. It has been for at least as long as I can remember, years before, about the major streets and why people coming out of the secondary streets have to be able to move when they get out. If you move I'll say the non-major streets, you're going to get there, but you won't be able to go anywhere either. But I think it's a couple of items you said about the parking lot versus the stalls. I know that you make those calls periodically. That's why I wanted to hear what the progress was going to be through today, that I know they're currently working on right now, and then through the night and then in the morning. So I'll see if there's any other inquiries from council. I know that came up in a work session as well. Councilman Michelangeli.
Just Patrick, just clarification. The County Road Commission handles the snow removal on Telegraph in the city and on Monroe Street?
No, actually, I appreciate that, Councilman. I hadn't really thought to address that. Don't ask me how these delineations came into being. I think years and years and years ago, we picked up M125. So we include M125 on our list of major streets. So when we have salting and plowing, we have 4 different routes, and that's Route 1. So like when we're running those, one of our drivers will be assigned Monroe Street and some other city majors. And we do get reimbursed. Our contract's like $53,000 for that. Now, the Road Commission used to do 24 and 50, but that was part of the work that they gave back when they couldn't come to an agreement with MDOT on a revised contract amount and terms. So now the state contractor Ferrovial actually handles US 24, M50, and I-75 through the city limits.
Okay. Okay, good. Thank you for clarifying that.
Absolutely. Thanks for asking the question.
So I guess I'll ask the street in honor of our resident who's no longer with us, Mr. Adam Yeager, which of course is South Custer moving out. Is that a road commission still?
Nope, that was a state trunk line that was handed over to Ferrovial, so they handle that as well.
Well, I know that he can't speak with us, but I'm sure he's very pleased. Councilman Lamore, and then I'll go to Councilwoman Germaini.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. I think our road crews do an excellent job. I'll never question that whatsoever. I think they do a diligent job getting these streets cleared, and they're tirelessly working at it. However, when we make policy for this is one of the things we have to think about when we're talking about the principal shopping district and places like that. We can't have a principal shopping district if there's nowhere to park downtown. And that's one of the things we have to think about. The parking lots were clear. So thank you very much for the diligent job they did there. I think they did a great job, but it's just one of the things as city council, we have to make policy for in the future, how we handle those things. Granted, there was a ton of snow that came down and you guys did an excellent job doing it, clearing it out. I will not deny that one bit. Maybe it's just priorities of where we take out and what we leave for a little bit until we get those things done. Because those things do run during the day. And I can tell you it was a nightmare trying to get out of a vehicle and trying to get into any of the stores downtown or any of the offices.
Since we're on this, I know it's your time, Councilman Michelangelo, but it's the topic of action. I think it's good that we hear this now and then we can move on back to you if you would. Councilwoman Germaini.
Yes, Patrick, can you give a guesstimate of when all the side streets will be done? Hopefully by tomorrow, you think?
I like I said, I just talked to our supervisory staff there, and they're very confident that barring some major equipment malfunctions, that we should be all set with all of the, I'll say, non-dead end routes should be absolutely plowed by the morning commute. We're hopeful that we can get all the dead ends done. We've got probably half the dead ends done now, and roughly half of the local streets. Like I said, we've been working kind of those two. I sent a couple of people to work dead ends and a couple of people to do the local streets, because those are more efficient. When you can just run a truck through and around the block, you can get caught up a lot faster on those. But just because the trash was sort of the governing factor, we've got quite a few dead ends in the trash area tomorrow too. So I think it's reasonably safe to say the vast majority of dead ends should be done by the morning commute, but I can't make a statement that we're going to get them all done. It's been slow going and there's a lot of snow. So
yeah.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you. I had people asking me, that's why I asked.
Sure. Sometime tomorrow we should have all of our primary work done. I don't think there's any concern about that, but whether it's done by the morning commute, I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Michelangelo, I'll go back to you. Oh, you're muted, sir.
Thanks, Your Honor. I think my only other comment would be following up on Councilman Lamore, would be that our downtown policy would be to remove all the snow in front of retail establishments and leave it in front of all of the lawyers.
I think it'd still generate phone calls. So I'll say, want to eliminate the calls. We have all good partners downtown. It's how we have to continue to move forward. Thank you,
That's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilwoman Vining.
Thank you, Your Honor. I was thinking about the marijuana licensing discussion that we've been having. and I apologize, I can't recall if we actually formed a committee to look into those things, but if we did, I wanted to suggest that we add a proponent of marijuana licensing in the city to the council, just because I know a few members of the administration spoke out heavily against marijuana in the city. So I just want to make sure that there's marijuana facilities in the city. So I just want to make sure that there's a fair and balanced committee and that we're getting both sides of the argument as we proceed.
I think, and Mr. Pastu might, I know he's got some next steps. I think the discussion up to now was more about what information could be brought forward in the discussion like we did at the last meeting, and give some, I guess, comparisons and get back to council the questions about understanding kind of like the 500 feet and those things. But there's not been any thing further, but I'll go to Mr. Pastu because I think he might have some timelines for next steps. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you, Your Honor. I was kind of hoping to get this as a work session item where we last left it is going through all of the different identified type of facilities, what the definitions mean for each of those, and then I think narrowing it down to what areas, land use areas would be probably appropriate. But candidly, we're going to have to, if there's retail type of use, have a discussion, because once we went through the buffering, we pretty much squeezed everything out, and this will be a council discussion as to where it is. Maybe at the March 1st meeting, we got a handful of items that night, but I do have to, and part of our special meeting was, this may be one of those where a Saturday morning we just sit and talk. Walk through it. It just, I'm not sure how I can fit it all into an hour and a half time frame to go into extensive detail with it.
Thank you. Also, Your Honor, I just wanted to thank Mr. Graham Denton for his work on reaching out to the members of that committee, and look forward to you and the city manager having that conversation. We don't want to let that fall by the wayside, definitely. Thank you. That's all I have for this evening.
Councilwoman Germaini.
Thank you, Your Honor. Last week, the Exchange Club had their luncheon and honored the officers of the year, and I want to recognize them and congratulate them. Detective Michael Schwartz from the Sheriff Department, Corporal Renee Peterson from our own city department, well-deserved, Sergeant Randy Seal from the Village of Dundee, and Detective Trooper Jordan Long from the Michigan State Police. It was an honor to be there, and congratulations to all those officers. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilman Moore.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just want to tip my hat to Jeff Green and the planning department for a great job on the CIP. I don't think people really realize there's a lot more that he does than just the CIP. And for him to be able to juggle that in amongst all the rest of the work that he's been doing, great job to him. Like I said, tip my hat to him. Also, I do have concerns regarding the CIP, but as the mayor stated, those are things that we can work through and talk about as they come up and they're approached. So I think that the approval of the CIP budget tonight was good, but it's something that we'll keep on moving on as we go through the years. So that's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Felder.
Thank you, Your Honor, and happy Fat Tuesday to everybody. As we have a happy Lent, I guess. As we begin to observe Lent, I suppose might be a better way to put it. But yeah, happy Fat Tuesday, Mardi Gras for everybody. I absolutely agree with the mayor's comments regarding the capital improvements budget. I do think that we need to have more of a discussion on that front. I voted no to close debate the last time that we had that conversation because specifically, I don't believe that we had enough of a conversation and I wanted it to continue. I hope it does continue, and I'd be more than happy to have to finish our discussion regarding public safety and determine a direction forward that we're going to go so we can begin matching our expenditures, capital improvements, and otherwise towards whatever the will of council is. So absolutely look forward to having that discussion. It is an important one to have, and it's a timely one to have because so much else depends on how we're going to structure that. So I think that that's something that needs to continue. I'm sure that that's fighting for space on the work sessions and other meetings along with everything else. But looking forward to those. I know I get my fair share of emails from Vince and his administrative reports and all the good things that he's working on. So that's all I have. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Whitman.
Well, I really don't have many comments. I'm happy that I can get out of my driveway, even though I own a Jeep. And I agree with Andrew that I would like to see us get moving forward on the public safety and get a sense of direction and make some decisions. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just make, it's been here a while yet tonight. Make just one comment related to the first Officer of the Year. Thank you, Councilwoman Germaini, for reviewing that. I think we've great recognition for that. Mine's going to be on snow as well, but it's just I guess a little bit different for information and opportunities for the public. As I wandered out this morning to shovel, my neighbor was out ahead of me because he says, I got the call last night on my alert network at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock that we send out to the public that about the snow emergency. He had moved his car. He got up early a little before me and already got most of his work done. I guess my point is he knew that the emergency was there. And there's many ways in which our communications director, Ms. Egan, sends that out there as well as through the city. Of course, what's on our website, social media, smartphone app, as well as the Monroe County alert notification system is how my neighbors seem to get it. So my message to the community is, there's ways to continue to be informed and in something like this, but also understanding what that means. And with the snow emergency declaration that comes out from the city, there are snow emergency routes. Unfortunately, I think most did respond by removing their vehicles from the main routes. And there's a list of what those are. Some are full-length streets through our community, and some are shorter. But if you understand what those routes are, then you'd understand if you lived on that or had a vehicle that might be there, the importance of removing those, because it does make it quicker for the plows and the employees to work. It also makes it cleaner and also improves the mobility of the vehicles and pedestrians getting across streets if they're able to do that efficiently. So I guess my message to the community is, there's ways to get these notices and information and to be a participant. And I want to thank those that have. So I'll stop with that as my comment for the evening and move forward. Clerk Treasurer Lavoie.
I have a couple of things, but they can all wait. So I see someone has their hand raised as an attendee, so I'm just going to defer my time to.
Okay, we have, thank you. Mr. Pastor, any comments before we go to the public comment?
Just a couple. One is, related to, the item with, the ambulance there. Again, this capital improvements program is a plan. There's still the budget that has to take place, as well as even a purchase approval. So there are other opportunities. And in fairness to Chief White, he has prepared kind of a report looking to address those items in there. And again, because of our very tight work session, I haven't been able to put that on the program for him, but we'll look to do so here in the near future. The other thing with it is, with this marijuana discussion, is there any interest in doing another Saturday morning discussion? I can have Pat Weaver in our office look to do that. Maybe not this upcoming Saturday, but possibly the following one. I'll But I do think it's one of those, it's a big ticket item and it just almost has to have its singular focus for a good discussion, I think.
I see heads shaking yes. I think by even the past conversation from council members and tonight, I think that and probably the public safety are the two that are going to be at least standalones to really to have the dialogue around all the aspects of it. So I'd say move forward, Mr. Pastu, from what the nods I saw. If there's objections or thoughts from council, like we can take them, or they can make contact with you as well. But I'd say yes, let's plan forward, move forward.
I'll put a date out there for council to consider, and public safety's coming. It's just that's coming. So anyways, okay, we'll follow up on that end of it as well for the marijuana ordinance.
Sounds great.
All right. That's it.
All right. Clerk Treasurer Lavoy, we'll go to citizens' comments. I see there's one hand raised, so we'll start there. I know it says museum, so I'll just ask the person, please identify themselves.
Yeah, Richard Micka. Can you hear me all right?
Sure can.
Yeah, Richard Micka, Monroe, Michigan. I shoveled snow today and ate punchki, so I'm happy. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Micka.
Super. Yeah, whenever I hear the proponents of cancel culture address city council on moving or removal of statues, I respond in kind. The advocates of these ill-advised propositions prefer to work in isolation, seeking approval for their cancel culture enterprise. The community is not obligated to accede to their demands. This is a costly issue and the taxpayers should not be burdened with it. The damage that could result to these monuments may be irreparable, and Monroe is well known for its historic figures, and that is the way it should remain as tourist attractions that bring people to the community. And with that, I sign off. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Micka. Other comments from those present here this evening? Other comments from those that are? I don't see any other hands. Okay. Seeing no other comments, the motion be in order for adjournment.
Adjourn.
Motion by Councilman Moore, supported by Councilman Ecolangeli to adjourn. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Echoangeli,
Yes.
Fining,
Yes.
Germaini,
Yes.
Wilmore,
Yes.
Felder,
Yes.
Whitman,
Yes.
Mayor Clark.
Yes. Thank you all. Stay safe, healthy, and we'll chat again